Hello my kings, queens and fellow non-binary leaders, and welcome back to Team Nekoma. I had this fun idea to make a compilation video of the top 10 most viewed videos in 2024. Is it a bit late to publish this in April? Yes it is. But yeah, I added fun ranking animations. This was honestly more work than I anticipated. So I really hope you enjoy this. And now here are our top 10. Hinata woke up from his stomach grumbling. It was so loud he feared it might wake the others as well. His glance fell on the clock on the nightstand and he groaned as it read 20 minutes after midnight. Great. With a bit of effort, he managed to heave himself out of the bed without any of the others noticing. He was 25 weeks along, and slowly but surely walking became a hassle. That didn't stop him from silently waddling into the kitchen though, in search for food. Much to his dismay, however, he couldn't find any omeboshi, no matter how hard he looked, which apparently was the only food his baby wanted right now. He took a step back to collect himself, feeling a few tears welling up in his eyes. Before, he assumed the stories about crying over cravings or spilled juice had been exaggerated, but he had been humbled quickly. Just now, the fact that they didn't have any omeboshi anymore felt like a personal insult, a very hurtful personal insult. He took a few shaky breaths before determination settled on his face. If they didn't have any anymore, he'd get more. The Omega briefly considered waking one of his mates to do it, but hesitated. Just yesterday he had been bawling his eyes out in Tadashi's lap over something minor, and snapped at Kageyama because he was irritated. All where the three tried their utmost to make him feel comfortable. Tsukishima had rubbed his back to ease the soreness for almost an hour, and Kageyama rushed out to make up for something that wasn't his fault at all, and came back with a new volleyball plushie for Hinata and the pup, causing him to cry again. He felt stupid for being so whiny lately. It scared his alphas half to death every time it happened. No, he could do this himself. No reason to disturb their sleep. That would happen frequently enough once the pup was born. He quickly grabbed his keys and wallet and set out to find the nearest 24-hour convenience store. Surely one of them would have omeboshi. He threw on a jacket, but otherwise didn't bother changing out of his pajamas. As he stepped outside, he was greeted by the cool night air. It was refreshing, still warm enough to be comfortable, but cool enough that he was glad to have thought of bringing his jacket. He picked a random direction, unsure which road would bring him there fastest. His stomach grumbled again, and his heart lightened at the idea of getting omeboshi soon. Kageyama felt a vague uneasiness spread under his skin and luring him to the surface of consciousness from his sleep. He frowned a little and tried ignoring it. In an attempt to soothe himself, he reached for Hinata to pull him into his arms, and found his side of the bed empty. It was as if he had been drenched in ice water, and immediately he grew alert. His eyes snapped open and his hand searchingly roamed over the other side of the bed once more, trying desperately to find their Omega, but nothing. The bed was empty beside him. Slowly panic seemed to assist him, and he sat up, searching the room, but finding nothing. Next to him, Yamaguchi began to stir. Fumio, are you okay? The Omega yawned and reached out over Tsukishima to soothingly rub over his back. Shoyo's gone. What? He blinked up confused, now sensing the panic of his alpha and responding in kind. Just like Kageyama before, Yamaguchi searched the bed and room with his eyes and found it empty. Okay, she probably went into the bathroom or kitchen. You know the pup has been rough on him recently. Kageyama could sense the calming pheromones Yamaguchi released to soothe him, but underneath the scent was tainted with distress as well. The dark-haired quickly got up to check if Tadashi was right, only noticing briefly Tsukishima's half-hearted complaint. He rushed from room to room, hoping each time to find Hinata behind the next door, but nothing. The fading influence through their bond should have been indicator enough, but it didn't stop him from holding out hope. What is going on? We can find Shoyo's gone. He's gone. He isn't here. Kageyama stormed back into the bedroom, now positively panicking. Wait, what? What do you mean Shoyo is... Just like the setup before, he reached out only to find the bed empty. At once, he sat up and reached for his glasses. I looked everywhere. He isn't here. The blonde ignored him and proceeded to search the house. When he returned, he seemed out of breath and panic was etched into his scent. Okay, so he isn't here. Let's stay calm and think this through. Kageyama wanted to protest. His heart was beating wildly in his chest and all he could do was stare at where Hinata ought to be. Suddenly, a hand reached out for his and loosened the fist he made in his agitation. He had half a mind to snap at Tsukishima to back off, but when he looked at him, his eyes were full of concern. They mirrored his own, and yet he knew that Tsukishima's worry wasn't just directed at their Omega. The grip on his hand tightened, and Kageyama begrudgingly accepted the stability it offered. I think it's safe to say that he wasn't taken or anything. It's unlikely we wouldn't have noticed, and I also see no reason why someone would try to take our Omega, especially now. Kageyama's stomach turned at the idea and the reminder of their pup. In the end, it wasn't just Hinata who was missing. He carried with him something smaller and far more vulnerable. I agree. So, if Hinata went on his own, where to? Why would he disappear in the middle of the night? I don't know, but it doesn't look like we can ask him. He nodded towards Hinata's phone, which still lay undisturbed under the nightstand. That idiot! The blonde sighed and nodded. He rubbed soothingly over the back of Kageyama's hand before separating from him in favor of checking whether there were any new messages on Hinata's phone that might indicate where he went. I suggest we call his friends. Maybe someone knows what is going on. That would be just like, what, half of Japan, potentially Brazil. He is friends with everyone he has met. A small chuckle followed an exasperated sigh from Yamaguchi, who reached for his own phone. I think it's probably a safe bet to stick to those who live close by. We can still branch out from there. Though, I'd be surprised if he found a way to get to Brazil so quickly. Sugawara-senpai. He quickly searched through his contacts for the number of his former senpai. Even nowadays, Kageyama still sought out his advice when he was stuck and his mates couldn't help. The setter prayed Suga would have the answer, that maybe whatever had caused Hinata to leave had moved the smaller to turn to him for help as well. In the background, he noticed Tsukishima trying to reach Kuro, while Yamaguchi attempted to contact Atsumu. This would be a long night. Tsuki, the world better be fucking ending for you to call me this. Early? Late? Kemma paused. He had just finished his stream and was in the midst of cleaning his setup and getting ready for bed himself when he heard Kuro's voice echo from their bedroom. His mates had gone to sleep long before him. It was nearing 1 a.m, and usually they would be fast asleep at this time. Oh, okay, yeah, that might cause the world to end. No, I haven't heard anything, but I'll ask Kemma. He was dreaming until a few minutes ago. Kuro let out an audible yelp and clutched at his chest as he opened the bedroom door and found Kemma right in front of it, who was just about to enter. Akashi commented on the sudden commotion with a dissatisfied grumble in the background. Jeez, kitten, don't scare me like that. I'm sorry. What is going on anyway? A hint of amusement colored his voice and Kuro sighed. He looked at him suddenly concerned before explaining. Have you heard from Hinata? Apparently he's missing. Missing? The word sounded hollow to him and he frowned. Slowly he stepped closer until he recognized the caller ID as Tsukishima. No, I haven't heard from him. What do you mean missing? Instead of Kuro, the blonde replied, and the taller quickly put him on speaker. In the background, Kemma saw the other two staring. Bogota's head perked up as he noticed something was off. We woke up and he wasn't here. There's no note, no anything to tell us where he went. We thought maybe he would have called you. No, I don't know anything. A sudden anxiety spread on his skin. This felt off. Not like something the spiker would do, or at least he had no idea why Hinata would. First, not leaving a message for his mates, and then also not contacting him. Something wasn't right. Hey, Tsukishima. We'll help you search. Keep us updated, okay? Kuro's warm eyes found his, and Kemma gave him a weary smile. He was grateful the other knew him so well, and even more so when he saw how much he cared. While Kuro still organized everything and explained the situation to their mates, Kemma took a more practical approach. He was in his clothes, thanks to the stream, and swiftly pocketed his phone and threw on his shoes, before he went out. He'd find him, somehow. Hinata observed the buildings around him with mild fascination, was snacking on the omeboshi-flavored chips he had gotten for himself. The problem, he barely recognized any of them. He thought he might have passed through here before, or at least seen the skyscraper-like building to his left from a distance, but it did little to help him regain orientation. He didn't usually wander through the streets aimlessly, let alone at night. The shadows made everything seem a lot more unfamiliar to him than normally. At least, he hoped that's what it was. And it wasn't already 4 in the morning, he had somehow managed to end up somewhere completely different. His feet hurt and he felt exhaustion overtaking him. What was he thinking going out in the middle of the night? How could he have been that hungry to not even consider where he was going? Now that he had the omeboshi chips in hand, he found out how to relate to himself 2 hours ago. With a sigh, he let himself fall onto a short wall on the side. A metal fence was built on top, and behind it lay a stretch of greenery. Probably a garden or park. He tried to decipher the shape in hopes of recognizing a landmark to go off of, but nope, it still looked all foreign to him. He leaned back against the fence and closed his eyes for a moment. For the first time since heading out, he focused on the bond he shared with his mates. He expected to barely feel it given the distance and that they probably were still sleeping, but hoped that the slight echo could ground him. He was half correct. The echo was faint, however, it was by no means peaceful. Just at the edge of his consciousness, he sensed turmoil and groaned. Why did they have to wake up before he came back? He had a perfectly good plan. Why did it all go so astray? He felt a scent sour and the prickling of tears in his eyes, but ignored it in favor of soothing himself with some more of the chips. His baby stirred and he rubbed soothingly over the swell of his belly to calm it. This is all your fault. Couldn't you want something simple like ramen? He huffed, but wasn't actually mad at his pup. In fact, his mood lifted immediately upon feeling the movement inside him. He already loved them so much. Shoyo! His head snapped up and at once his face brightened with a smile. Kemma had appeared at the end of the street and was now running towards him. He seemed a little out of breath and shaken, but Hinata gave it little thought as he jumped up despite his exhaustion to greet his friend. He stopped a few steps before the other to keep a small distance as usual. However, to his utter shock, Kemma crossed it without hesitation and hugged him. He didn't get the chance to hug him back before the blonde pulled away again, still holding him by his shoulders and looking him up and down. Are you okay? He saw the cat-like eyes fixating on the redness around his eyes and his gaze flickering down to his stomach. The scent of his previous distress still clung to his clothes, however Hinata smiled, didn't waver, and he nodded. Of course! Just a little exhausted. I got lost. He sheepishly looked away and scratched the back of his neck. Kemma let out a breath of relief before he suddenly tensed and looked around. I think... me too. Hinata stared at him stunned for a moment before he burst out laughing. It's like when we first met, just this time you found me. Kemma gave him a small smile and was quick to guide him back to the wall when he saw that Hinata seemed to be struggling. He also brought up his wrist to send the Amiga to help him calm a little and to calm himself. What are you even doing out here this late? Searching for you. We all are. All? What do you mean? What did they do? He felt heat rise up his cheeks at the prospect of his mates making a huge fuss over his absence. It's only been 2 hours max, hasn't it? Well, definitely me, and Koro, aside from your mates that is. Tsukishima called him when they noticed you were missing. What are you even doing out here? Hinata sheepishly held up the bag of chips and avoided eye contact. I had cravings. I swear, they're the worst. But I didn't want to bother any of them, and I thought I'd be quick, but, well... Kemma paused and looked at him incredulously. He shook his head slightly in disbelief. Don't judge me. You don't know what it's like. And I hope I never will. That whole thing sounds awful. But really, not even a note. This biker's face grew even redder, and he hid his face in his hands in embarrassment. I wasn't quite awake yet. It was the middle of the night, and I just... Seijoh, it is the middle of the night. That's why your mates are freaking out. He groaned and tried to hide further. Kemma, on the other hand, thought of a more practical solution and pulled out his phone. Can you walk? I can never get us back. The ginger nodded wordlessly and got up to follow the blonde Omega. This was so embarrassing. They'd eat him alive once they figured out why he had left and caused them all headaches. The city was blanketed in silence as Kemma guided him along the empty streets. Neither of the Amigas said much, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Once Kemma was comfortable around someone, he had the astonishing ability to create comfortable silence. It was something rarely utilized between the two, seeing as Hinata usually barely stopped talking, but right now he was just tired and exhausted and embarrassed. He felt guilty about worrying his partners for no reason, though the fact that he kept on eating the chips now on his second bag showed that it wasn't completely without reason. As they returned to the quieter outer parts of the city, a car suddenly approached and stopped beside them. Kemma tensed and instinctively pushed Hinata behind him when suddenly Sugawara stepped out of the vehicle. Oh, thank the gods. You're alright. The silverhead rushed towards them, and Hinata was about ready for the ground to swallow him whole. Still, he didn't reject the embrace Suga pulled him into. Over his shoulder, he recognized Iwaizumi standing by the driver's side and typing a message into his phone. What are you doing out here? Everyone is worried sick. I'm sorry. Kinda had cravings and really just wanted to get some chips, but, I got lost. Well, thank goodness it wasn't anything worse. Come on, we'll bring you home. You too, Kemma. Bogoto is kind of losing his mind thinking someone might have kidnapped both of you. The smaller rolled his eyes in loving exasperation, but complied without complaint. He snuggled up to Hinata's side in the backseat to comfort him. Suga sighed as he took his place on the passenger seat again. Everyone alright? His former vice captain nodded and quickly explained so Hinata wouldn't have to again. Oh yeah, I remember yours were really bad too. Yet you always woke up one of us to get you whatever you needed. You say that as though it is a bad thing, when we both know that if I had pulled a stunt like this, Daichi and you would have had the whole police department and national volleyball team searching for me. Yes, we would have. He pressed a kiss to Suga's temple before starting the car. Where's Daichi? Oh, he's at home with Toto and the kids. Aita and Ida were still asleep when we left, but you never know, and Nika woke up when we did. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. We'll always be there for you. And believe me, Hajime is right. I know how bad cravings can get. Just send Tsukishima next time. Hinata chuckled but stopped abruptly as the mate bond reconnected, and he felt that worry more and more intensely the closer they got. He took a deep breath and braced himself. Shoyo! Tadashi spotted him first and dashed forward to greet him halfway. Before Hinata knew it, he was wrapped tightly in his mate's arms. It felt so comforting. He let himself fall into the touch without second thought. I'm alright, Tadashi. Okay, what happened? Where were you? Kageyama might demand answers, but he didn't wait for a reply before pulling both him and Tadashi into his arms and scenting them to make sure they were okay. Tsukishima was the last to join. He didn't say anything, just buried his face against Hinata's neck and assured himself of their Omega's well-being. In the background, Suga excused himself and went to leave. Hinata didn't even manage to say goodbye or thank him again, trapped in his mate's embrace. What happened, Shoyo? Other than Kageyama, Yamaguchi spoke softly while pressing a kiss to his hair. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to worry you. I thought I'd be home faster. That wasn't the question. Are you okay? Where did you leave? Hinata sighed, but slowly but insistently fought himself out of the embrace. He took a deep breath and stepped back. The air was heavy with their worried scents, and immediately guilt overcame him anew, but he had told the story too many times by now to back out. I had cravings and we didn't have any omeboshi anymore, so I went out to get some more. Logically, some stores were closed, so I had to search a bit and got lost. You forgot your phone? Yeah. The blonde sighed before reaching a hand out again, offering. Hinata took it hesitantly. You really are an idiot. Why didn't you wake one of us? He avoided their glances, his eyes glued to the ground. I didn't want to bother you. Shoyo, we are your mates. We want you to bother us. Hinata pressed his lips together more tightly and let his hand slip from Tsukishima's grasp. Sho. I know, okay? I know. And if I had, none of this would have happened, but now it feels like I can do anything right. Suga picked me up like a lost kid. That was so embarrassing. I don't want to be babied. Maybe a little, during pregnancy, but I don't want you to look at me like I'm incompetent. For a moment it was silent. Hinata crossed his arms over his chest. His nails were digging into his skin, and tears pulled in his eyes again until they welled over. Stupid. He wiped them away, annoyed, feeling more useless as the seconds ticked by. We don't think you're incompetent. I'm sorry if I made you feel like that. I'm sorry if I was overstepping. Tsukishima nodded slowly in agreement, visibly hesitant. He yearned to reach for the redhead again, but kept the distance Hinata had created. Tadashi's right. I just worry, but I always do that, about all of you. It just so happens that in your case now, I worry for two. Hinata sniffled a little, his eyes falling onto Kageyama, who had said the least so far. He looked troubled. Tobio? I want to care for you. I don't know how to make you not feel like this. You'll have to tell me. I don't want to make you feel like this. He saw how much it cost him, how much it bothered him to unintentionally have hurt his mate. Hinata's heart broke a little at the sight. He stepped closer to his alpha again, took his hand and soothingly rubbed over his wrist. You can take care of me. Of us. I'll try to communicate it better. if something is bothering me. Kageyama nodded, still hesitant, so Hinata closed the distance between them and hugged him again. Can you carry me to bed now? I'm tired. A small smile tugged at the corners of his lips, and he did just that. At once he whisked Hinata up into his arms. Their mates followed close behind. Hinata woke up to an ongoing flood of messages, making him genuinely consider running away for real this time. Maybe changing his identity just so that he won't have to face this. How many goddamn people have you told I was missing? Not that many, just Kuro, subsequently his boyfriends, same with Sugawara, and about half of MSBY and the Japanese national team. It was 2 hours! Technically, almost 3.5 by the time you were back. Tadashi, help me! Can't. I was the one who called Atsumu. Hinata groaned and opted to heighten his pillow some more, slowly pulling the blanket over his head again. He'd never be able to return to the court. When Hinata woke up, his head hurt and he sniffled a little. An uneasy and itchy feeling spread throughout his whole body. He blindly groped around in bed, searching for his boyfriends, only to find it empty. He was the only one left. The middle blocker sat up straight, pouting as he reached for his phone, only to be surprised when the clock read 12:35 p.m. That was weird. He was usually the first to wake up, and very early as well. In the beginning, after they all moved in together, Kageyama still tried beating Hinata at being the first one up. They both drove Kei and Tadashi close to insanity, to the point where both of them, not just Kei, threatened to make them sleep in the living room, but soon the setter gave up. There was no denying that Hinata was a natural early bird, even though today he certainly didn't feel like it. He groaned, his voice hoarse, as he dragged himself out of bed towards the bathroom. When he finally made it downstairs, he was greeted by Tsukishima and Yamaguchi. Or well, he was greeted by Tsukishima since Yams was too occupied with one of his mangas to acknowledge their ginger's presence. Morning, love. Have you slept well? Tsukishima closed the distance between them and placed a soft kiss on Hinata's forehead. The other just nodded slowly and yawned. It took him a moment to notice the frown on his boyfriend's face. What? You felt a bit warm. May I? He reached his hand out to touch Hinata's forehead again, but the smaller dived away quickly. The ginger was well aware that a fever would mean that he couldn't play volleyball, and he for sure couldn't let that happen. So much time would be wasted. I'm fine. I just took a hot shower. No need to make such a fuss about it. He wasn't lying. After his body and mind slowly woke up, it didn't feel so bad anymore. His voice sounded almost normal, and the uncomfortable feeling had died down to just faint dizziness. Tsukishima's expression darkened nonetheless. However, before he could continue and start a tirade about how he couldn't neglect his health, Yamaguchi interrupted them, handing Hinata a steaming mug. Come on, Kei, it's fine. Don't be so strict about it. I'm sure it's still from yesterday, right, Shoyo? Hinata nodded eagerly, not wondering even for a second how Yams got here so quickly, with a cup of tea. There was a good chance that Tadashi was right after all. He had worked himself past his limits yesterday, which earned him a lecture from all three of his boyfriends, and was still very much exhausted. Not that that could stop him from playing again today. Tsukishima, however, didn't look convinced in the slightest. He rolled his eyes and threw a last annoyed glance at both of them before turning around. Fine, Have it your way. But don't expect me to baby you when you get sick. Yamaguchi chuckled. Thanks, Dashi. Where's Kax? Outside, training. I think he's still a bit irritated that you aren't with him yet. The ginger's eyes widened and he rushed to drink the tea Yamaguchi gave him. Ugh, what is that? He was grimacing and glared daggers at the cup. A compromise. Drink it and you can play. Hinata whined, and Yamaguchi leaned forward to place a kiss on his nose. Love you, Sho. The middle blocker's eyes started to sparkle. I love you too, Dashi. The former pinch server sat down on the couch beside Kei and snuggled to his side, even though the blonde did his best to act as if nothing had changed. Hey, Kei? No reply. He scooted closer. Kei? Tsuki? Tsukishima twitched slightly, but he stubbornly ignored the other. Yamaguchi sighed before climbing on the blonde's lap in one swift motion. Honey, what are you doing? His voice sounded collected and calm, but Yamaguchi could see the tips of his ears turning pink. He grinned. Getting your attention? He could almost hear the sarcastic remark already before the other sighed defeated. They both knew that Tadashi would win this. He was more stubborn when it came to his boyfriends, and all three of them had a hard time resisting his puppy eyes. Fine, what do you want? I already told you, your attention. He leaned down and kissed Kei's cheeks. Don't be mad at me because I took Shoyo's side. We both know that it's hard to convince him to do anything, even if it's for his own sake, when he has another idea in mind. His kisses traveled down the blonde's neck, and he could feel a shiver running through Kei's body. So you think we should just let him, even when he's overworking himself or sick? Tadashi sighed and leaned his forehead against Tsukishima's. No, of course not. But we might need a more diplomatic approach than arguing to convince him. Now it was Tsuki's turn to sigh. I know. Thanks for reminding me. Yamaguchi looked at him surprised and had only seconds to assess the warm, gentle hands cupping his cheeks and lifting his chin, before equally as warm lips met his own. Come on, Kax, one more! The setter nodded and got in position. He played a quick pass towards the spiker's highest point he knew Hinata could reach, normally. This time, however, he missed. The 5th time in a row. Oi, Bo! Why isn't it working? He started to pace around in the garden, frustrated by his own shortcomings. Shoyo? Hinata ignored him. With quick steps, Kageyama closed the distance between them and took the smaller by his shoulders. What? He frowned at the ginger and tried to analyze the reason behind his weird behavior today. Oi, Kax, what are you doing? Are you feeling okay? You seem off. Not you too. First Kei and now you? How many times? I'm fine. Kei said something? The setter's frown deepened. He might argue with the middle blocker a lot, but he also trusted him with his life. And on most occasions, like 80% of the time, the blonde was the most responsible out of the 4 of them. The other 20% were Tadashi's, whenever Kageyama, Hinata, and Tsukishima started one of their petty arguments. Yes, but like I said, I'm fine. He started jumping around to prove his point. Let's play. Come on. Or are you tired, Bakayama? What? They played for a bit longer, and at first, things seemed to get better, But soon Hinata's jumps got worse again and he was slower than usual. Maybe we shouldn't. I'm fine. It wasn't really convincing with how much he was panting and sweating. Seijoh, you... Hinata started to fall. Kageyama reached him just in time before he hit the ground. For a moment he thought this might be a prank like the one Tadashi pulled on them, but Hinata looked up at him with glassy eyes and didn't even seem to fully comprehend what had happened yet. Are you sick? Why didn't you say so? I'm not. He started coughing. The raven had stroked his back soothingly until it was over. Come here, I'll carry you inside. The ginger looked like he wanted to protest, but Kageyama looked at him sternly and the other sighed in defeat. He picked him up as if he weighed nothing and made his way towards the living room, only to find Tsukishima and Yamaguchi practically half naked on the couch. Come on, guys. The sofa? They turned around, and Tsuki had at least the decency to blush upon being caught like this, while Yamaguchi just grinned shamelessly. You can hardly complain, Kageyama. He emphasized every bit of his name, and Kageyama felt a familiar heat rising and warming his cheeks. Yams laughed. He was truly as dangerous as he looked innocent. Hinata's body was shaken by another coughing fit, gaining the attention of everyone in the room. The two lovers on the couch quickly got up and fixed their clothes. Their expression shifted to concern. How are you feeling? Fine. His words were interrupted by coughs. Yamaguchi chuckled a little and Tsukishima rolled his eyes. How about we get you back to bed, prepare a nice soup for you and some tea. Hinata scrunched his nose in disgust, making Yamaguchi laugh and looking absolutely adorable in the process. Don't worry, I have delicious tea as well, but you'll have to drink some of it, it's good for you. The hope that had flickered in the ginger's eyes vanished and he started pouting. The faster you get healthy, the faster you can play volleyball. Fine. Tobio. I'll bring him upstairs. Thanks. No. What? I don't want to be in bed upstairs, alone. Seijoh, you need to rest. But I want to stay with you guys. Tsukishima sighed. He took a blanket and covered the sofa with it, before putting some of the pillows aside. I'm going to get his blanket and stuff from upstairs. Kegs, can you put him down on the couch, and Yams, if you could prepare the soup. Already on it. Both of them nodded and got to work. Oh, and Seijoh? Huh? No getting up. You stay on the couch. Stay on the couch or I'll personally lock you in the bedroom. He said nothing, but Tsukishima knew that he wouldn't get up. Hopefully. One could never be sure with idiots like them. For the rest of the day, they all did their best to make Hinata feel comfortable and loved, nursing him back to health. Tsukishima, I guess his own words, babied and spoiled the spy girl for the whole day and the next to come. Not that any of them was particularly surprised by that. They watched movies and played video games to keep the ginger entertained and in bed, or rather on the couch. The true horror began, however, when first Yamaguchi and then Tsukishima caught Hinata's cold as well, and Kageyama was left alone to care for his 3 sick boyfriends. Tsumu. Hey, Atsumu. What? Is something wrong, Ami? The blonde looked up at him, startled. He blinked a couple of times, his eyes zeroing in on the ace slowly. I should ask you that. He tried not to let the cute tilt of his head distract him. Atsumu had the unbelievable ability to look like a lost puppy when confused. It was painfully adorable and brought Kiyomi time and time again into embarrassing situations. Even worse, inside the confinements of his apartment, he wore no mask to hide behind as a subtle blush slowly tainted his cheeks. Not that Atsumu didn't know by now that he had the tala utterly wrapped around his finger. I'm fine. He turned back to the sink, the tips of his ears turning pink, but there was tension in his expression. He pressed his lips together and worried them between his teeth until Kiyomi could see the faint hint of red appearing. Blood. Atsumu, talk to me. What's wrong? Concerned, he put the towel aside and shifted toward him. Upon closer inspection, the setter looked even more disheveled. He was sweating, and a worried crease appeared between his brows. His hands were trembling slightly. Why do you assume something is wrong? Well, for starters. He gently reached over and took the plate Atsumu was washing from his hands. You have washed this plate for the past 6, almost 7 minutes. Now that's oddly precise. Can't take your eyes off me? The sly smirk appeared on the blonde's face, causing Sakusa's eyes to soften. He loved the smirk. It was infuriating. It managed to make his blood boil every time, but it was so Atsumu. He wouldn't want to have it any other way. If I say yes, what do I get in return? He leaned in a little, teasing. Atsumu's breath staggered a bit. Perhaps you could tell me what's on your mind? Ami, not fair. The ace chuckled, dried his hands off and wrapped his arms around Atsumu, pulling him closer. He kissed his cheeks tenderly, where a subtle blush started to blossom. Please, Atsumu. I want to know what's bothering you so that I can help, just like you always do for me. The blonde sighed and gently loosened the embrace. He too dried his hands and quickly cleared the counter. When he spoke again, he didn't look at him. I just don't want you to take it the wrong way. His heart seemed to stutter and he had to remind himself to breathe. It was hard not to jump to conclusions when the warm, reassuring eyes so stoically refused to face him, but he had to stay calm for Atsumu. Stay calm. See? That's what I mean. He kept Sakusa's cheeks. You worry too much, and there really is no good way to address this. No, please. I want to know what you're thinking, even if you decide that Don't you even dare finish that sentence. He looked at him sternly. A small sigh echoed through the room, but when Atsumu looked up again, he smiled softly. You're such a pessimist. You know that, right? So I've been told. It was a little hard to speak with Atsumu squishing his face together. It must have been an increasingly odd sight because the setter laughed and finally let go of him. He followed him to the couch and they snuggled up together before Atsumu started to speak again. He seemed more comfortable being close, but still, his gaze stayed focused on something in the distance Kiyomi couldn't see. I've just been thinking. Tomorrow, the break will be over. The next season is about to start and we gotta return to practice. That's how it goes. I thought you'd be excited though. I mean, you missed them, right? Of course. I'm sure Sho has a bunch of stories and Bo probably won't shut up about meeting Akashi again. It's just... things are different now. How's that? As far as I can tell, you're still the same idiot as before. Atsumu scoffed. Rude. A chuckle resonated in Sakusa's chest. He knew what the setter was referring to, but the thought made him nervous. Do you want to tell them about us? No. There it was. His chest tightened slightly, though he knew he shouldn't have gotten his hopes up. The way Mia was bashing through all his walls was dangerous, but every attempt to stop him was futile, and after a month all he did was watch the destruction with fascination, and a newfound spark of passion ignited in his heart. Who would have thought he could get burned so quickly? Please, don't get me wrong, I like you. More than that. He sat up. Finally, this piercing gold looked back at him. It was so much warmer than everything he'd ever known. Too warm, perhaps. Kiyomi, please don't look at me like that. Confused, his brows pinched together. Like what? Like you expect me to pack up and leave. Are you not? The setter's eyes widened and he froze. Suddenly, the gold got covered by a thin veil of tears and Sakusa gulped in shock. Atsu, of course not! Why would you even think that? I love you, Kiyomi. I want to be with you. Why would you just... You... Don't just accept this as if it was obvious. It rattled him to the bone, seeing Atsumu so infuriated at his indifference, yet it hurt much more to see him so distressed. Hey, Atsu, it's alright. I'm fine. No, that's not fine. Don't prepare for me to leave just like that, because I won't. I won't. Not unless you tell me to. He got quieter toward the end, and it broke his heart. Okay, but I won't. Please stay. He tugged at his hand, and without another word, the setter flung himself back into his arms. I'm sorry. I don't want this to fail. His words were muffled by Kiyomi's shirt as he held him close. I get attached to people easily. I hyper-focus on them, and sometimes I come on too strong and rush into things. Plus, in recent years, I felt like... Sakusa felt his own throat tightening as he heard the strain in Atsumu's voice. He couldn't decipher the reason for his sorrow, yet desperately wished he could take it from him. Like what? Like the people I've been with valued my reputation more than, well, me. Like they would only be with me long enough to earn bragging rights, or, you know. He didn't, but he also didn't feel like he should press the issue. Instead, he pulled the setter closer, stroking across his back soothingly. It's okay. We'll go at your pace. But you... I got scared for a second. But I don't need a public speech to be sure. Your reassurance is enough. I believe you. He heard a soft sniffle echoing from where Atsumu hit against his neck, and his heart clenched. Thanks. Of course. Atsumu was still tense when they walked to the gym. He was visibly uncomfortable and continued to throw unsure glances at the ace. Sakusa in return didn't know what to say to reassure him that he didn't mind. He wouldn't leave because of something like that. All he needed to know was that Atsumu wanted to be with him, and if the only proof for that were his whispered words in the safety of their home, that was fine. For now. He took him aside just before entering the gym, repeating himself for the upteenth time, and Atsumu nodded slowly. Something was off, and Sakusa wasn't sure it just stemmed from his insecurities. His eyes were slightly glassy and his cheeks still bestowed with a warm blush. But before he could ask further, Atsumu saw Hinata approaching from afar and they proceeded inside, now separate. He'd have to ask him again after practice. Today, training was oddly silent. Sure, Bokutsu and Hinata were their loud and energetic selves, but it wasn't the same without Atsumu's input. The setter was playing well as usual, but his movements were mechanic and practiced, far from his usual style. At moments he wondered if he was even aware of what happened around him. He didn't seem present. Sakusa gulped, the worry he couldn't shake off since this morning more prominent than before. Was this his fault? Because he reacted so poorly, or was this whole thing a general bad idea? What if the abilities on the court would suffer from the relationship? Of course, he wasn't the only one who noticed. Despite the blonde's forced smile and faint enthusiasm, they had barely finished the first set when Mian pulled him aside. Sakusa, do you know by any chance what is going on with Atsumu? He insists he's fine, but he wasn't. That much was obvious. Still, Sakusa shook his head. It wasn't a complete lie. He had a hunch, was sure that it was something he did wrong, but what, he didn't know. And he'd respect Atsumu's wishes to keep the relationship secret. I don't know. Why are you asking me that? You care about him, and Atsumu cares about you, so I thought maybe you knew more than us. Thanks regardless. It left Sakusa a little stunned, and he had to do a double take to make sure he understood him correctly. Was it that obvious? They weren't even together the last time they were with the team. He hadn't even realized how he felt about Atsumu. All they did was fight. Hey, Tsum Tsum! You sure you're good to go for the next set? You look pretty pale. Are you kidding me, Bokan? Of course I'm ready. Just you wait, me and the prickly spiker over there will kick your ass this time. They laughed, and Sakusa didn't need to turn around to know that Atsumu meant him. He vaguely suppressed the urge to smile at his comment and force his face into a scowl. This was more like him. The next set they'd play together, and he would make sure he'd hit every one of Atsumu's sets perfectly. The game went great, and Kiyomi felt more and more at ease as it progressed, and Atsumu used his playful and risky attacks again, utilizing him from every corner of the court. His style was aggressive and unpredictable, leaving the other half of their team just as exhausted as him as they tried to chase after his volatile play. His muscles strained, and slowly Sakusa could feel the tiredness kicking in, but he embraced it. This meant Atsumu was finally back as the setter he was. It wasn't until the end of the set that Atsumu's struggles resurfaced. For the blink of an eye, his expression twisted into one of pain. It startled him. But when he looked closer, it was gone. A quick glance around showed that no one had noticed but him. Was he getting delusional? Did his worry cloud his judgment? Part of him wanted to end the set right there, to assure himself that Atsumu was okay, but the smile now plastered on the setter's face stopped him. Perhaps it was really nothing, in which case wouldn't it be much worse to make a fuss about it and potentially expose them as partners? He'd ask him after the set, but he had to ask. Shoyo! He watched the flash of orange strike forward and moved his own position and sink, adjusting his stance on the court when suddenly the dull thud of the ball hitting the ground echoed through the room. Atsumu's set missed. His eyes darted to the setter, noticing his labored breathing and glassy eyes. He turned toward them to apologize when suddenly his gaze became unfocused and he wavered. Sakusa was in motion before his brain could truly understand the action. He dashed to Atsumu's side and caught him before he could fall, but it didn't stop him from bringing both of them to the ground. Tsumu? He propped his head up against his chest, watching his expression carefully and shaking him gently. The setter's skin was pale and glistening with sweat. His eyes were red-rimmed, and upon closer inspection, he was hot to the touch. He looked sick. Atsumu! The noises around them swelled into a panicked mess, only kept at bay by Mian and the coach, who quickly made his way to Atsumu and Sakusa. Is he awake? Sakusa shook his head, a sudden lump in his throat taking his voice away. Did he hit his head, while falling or before? No. Okay, let's carry him to the benches. Can someone bring him a water bottle, please? Immediately, Hinata jumped into action while Sakusa lifted the blonde into his arms and carried him to the nearest bench as the coach instructed. He placed him down gently and batted his head in his lap as he settled down by his side. Gently, his fingertips traced the shape of his face, and he brushed strands of sweaty blonde hair from his forehead. It was so warm. He couldn't believe he didn't notice sooner. When Hinata reached them with the bottle, Atsumu wasn't awake yet to accept it, but Sakusa took it and damped one of the towels a bit before patting down the setter's forehead carefully. How could he allow this to happen? They had spent so much time together recently. Hadn't he been careful enough? He didn't feel sick, but there was still the possibility that he brought it into Atsumu's home, on his clothes or breath. How could it be that he failed to protect him? He'd make up for it. Almost tenderly, he wiped the sweat from Atsumu's face and neck and put little bits of fresh, cool water on the towel periodically to help him cool down from the fever. He wished they were home right now, that they would have never left for training this morning, so that he could draw him a hot bath right now and care for him adequately. I don't know what's more unsettling, the fact that Atsumu fainted so suddenly, or Sakusa looking at him like that. Thomas nodded slowly. He's obviously sick, yet Sakusa looks so gentle. Who knows? Maybe he's sick too. Lovesick. Hinata grinned wildly at his stupid joke, yet no one reacted, still too encaptured by this odd display of affection between their teammates. Kyo? Ami? Hey. Relief spread within Sakusa's chest, and he smiled softly at the other. Atsumu seemed to have forgotten where they were because he simply smiled back and snuggled closer to the ace. It warmed his heart to see that he sought his company even when vulnerable, and he would have loved to indulge him, but that had to wait until they came home. Gently he coaxed him into a sitting position and offered the water Hinata brought. Here, drink something first, then we can bring you home to rest. Atsumu's brows pinched together in confusion before realization dawned on his face, and his cheeks took a worryingly dark shade of red. No reason to be embarrassed, Sumi-kun. You just almost face-planted on the ground. Bokuto laughed. Yeah, go home. And let your boyfriend take care of you. Sakusa stilled. He knew that he hadn't been subbed in his care and that this was utterly out of the ordinary for him. But still, they jumped to conclusions faster than expected. He didn't look at Atsumu as the coach approached him again. How are you feeling, Atsumu? A bit better, but... I know, you should go home. Sorry for acting recklessly. I truly didn't think it was that bad. Well, just do better next time. Now, do you think you can manage going home on your own? Cold shivers hunted down Sakusa's spine at the suggestion. I'll bring him home. He had expected to have to fight Atsumu on this, but the setter remained quiet and only nodded as the coach asked for his approval. The whole way home, they didn't exchange another word, and it was nerve-wracking. He made sure to support Atsumu so that he wouldn't faint again, but otherwise kept his distance, certain that the other was still mad at him and didn't want him close. Even once home, no words were spoken. Atsumu looked barely present until suddenly his eyes widened in shock. Kiyomi, what are we doing here? The sound of his name caused his heart to speed up. He couldn't be too mad if he still referred to him by his given name. What do you mean? I brought you home so you could rest. Yeah, sure, but this is your home. Oh. Perhaps he was wrong. He knew that they had only been together for a relatively short while, but ever since Atsumu had spent so much time here, he had become accustomed to his presence. Still, it was foolish to think Atsumu would harbor the same attachment. It was closer, and here I can take care of you better. I know where everything is, and I'm always... Stop that. He flinched, drawing back further. Sorry. No, that too. He struggled for the right words, where Sakusa racked his brain for a way that could make this easier for him. Atsumu, I know that you are mad at me. I get it, I messed up. But please, let me make it up to you. Mad at you? He hissed, looking at the ace, and this time the raven recognized what he had been looking for ever since this morning. In Atsumu's eyes burned rage. Mad at you? Why do you say such things? You always spout such nonsense. I can't with you. You... He let out a pained cry and leaned against the wall. Sit down first. No. Why are you like this? Why don't you get mad at me as you used to? Why do you say all that? As quickly as the seething anger had run hot through his system, setting his nerves ablaze, as quickly did it pass. His voice faded and he sounded almost broken toward the end. I don't understand. Atsumu, don't be stupid. Sit down before you faint again. He noticed the waver in his stance and rushed closer to catch him again if necessary. A bittersweet laugh echoed from the blonde at his words. Yeah, that's better. What, you like me more when I'm an asshole? He tried to harness his annoyance, fueled by confusion and frustration, but every time he thought he'd finally figured out the setter, he surprised him anew. I like ya better if ya don't talk shit about yourself and look at me like a lost puppy I kicked out on the streets. His voice was still bitter, but he wasn't yelling at him anymore, and Sakusa didn't know whether it was the lack of energy or if he had never meant to yell in the first place. I never... It was implied. Ya think I'll leave you the first chance I got? Well, newsflash, I won't. You think I'd get mad at you for the most arbitrary and minuscule things? Well, I won't do that either. I'm only mad because you're being such a dick to yourself. Sakusa stared at him for a long moment, unsure what to reply or if there was even any plausible answer to this other than... You're right. I know I'm a major hypocrite and jerk about this, but this doesn't mean that... Wait, what did you just say? You're right. I'm not good at being kind to myself. I'm working on it, but I relapsed. I'm sorry that it affected you. This time, it was Atsumu's turn to stare. He blinked slowly, clearly perplexed. What? Kate got your tongue? He tilted his head slightly, teasing. Atsumu gulped. Usually, people don't just admit that. I wouldn't have. Well, I'm not doing this since yesterday. I might only have been able to sever ties with my family recently, but I've worked years to undo the damage they caused. Still, not quite there, though. His gaze darkened, and he looked down at the ground, disappointed. I'm proud of you. His head snapped up. What? I'm proud of you. I mean, this whole thing sucks. You shouldn't be the one who has to make up for their mistakes. But that's life for you. Stupid shit. Still, you're better at it than I am. I mean, look at me. He laughed and clearly meant it as a joke, but Sakusa didn't share that sentiment. He closed the distance between them and led Atsumu despite protest toward the couch to lay down. Perhaps you're right. At least I'll assume you are, if you continue to act like a baby about it. Mean! Also, to my defense, I truly thought it was mostly nerves, because I was worried ever since your reaction yesterday, about not telling them and all. Sakusa stiffened again, his hands digging into the blanket he got for Atsumu. Yeah, I guess that failed. I'm sorry. I should have been more subtle, but all I could think about at the moment was that I had to make sure you're alright. Aw, don't tell me, Ami. Do you have a crush on me? Whatever moment of sincerity they had was ruined in an instant. You were such an arrogant idiot, Mia. He shrugged his shoulders. So what? Better being the idiot than the one being in love with the idiot. Do tell, Ami, what does this say about you and your judgment of character? Obviously, I must be a masochist. He deadpanned, but Atsumu burst out laughing. A small smile played around Sakusa's lips, until suddenly the laugh turned into a cough, increasing in severity. He patted Atsumu's back soothingly, the sweat drenching his shirt, reminding him again that the other suffered a fever. I draw you a bath. You need to sweat out the fever. Afterward, I'll make you some tea and you can rest. Sleep a little if possible, and... Why are you... I mean, doesn't this make you uncomfortable? Sakusa contemplated that for a moment, a little surprised himself that he wasn't keeping 3 meters apart at all times. Yes, it does. I don't like to see you suffer, and the sickness makes me nervous. However, you spent so much time here recently, it feels like I failed to protect you. The setter giggled again. You're silly, protecting me from germs. He laughed, and somehow it made Sakusa feel warm. He loves that sound. You will, however, take the guest bedroom. I will take care of you, but only if you follow my instructions. Of course, Nurse Omi. I'll be a willing patient. He rolled his eyes at that, having the slight suspicion that Atsumu would, despite his words, be quite the challenging patient to deal with. In the Volleyball Freaks GC. You don't get it. The ball was all wham and I thought the floor would break. Yes, Omi-kun's spikes are really super strong. Not as good as mine though. Oh, really? I remember he was better than you in high school. That was high school. I am much better now. Thoughts, Sakusa? Keep me out of this. Isn't Ushijima still better than the both of you? Nuh-uh. We defeated them in our last practice match. Where's Atsumu-kun? Shouldn't be he already defending his boyfriend's honor or something? Don't provoke it. You are so head over heels for him, a blind person won't be able to see it. Atsumu is online. Speaking of the devil. What's up, Tsumu? Tsum-tsumu! Atsumu! Okay, be nice. Fine. Simp. Don't worry about it, babe. Oh, shut up. Hi. Good evening, Atsumu. Always so formal, Ushijima-san. Some things never change, do they? Hey, Tsumu-kun, you've seen the spike in practice today, right? Sure, I was the one setting the ball, remember? Yeah, so who's the better spiker right now, me or Ami? What do you expect? He's biased. Huh? Of course he's gonna side with his boyfriend. What's this even about? What, Suna? You use suspiciously few emojis today. I noticed that too. Everything alright, Sumu? I'll swear to the gods I'll tell Asumu. Actually... Atsumu added Asumu to the group chat. There is something we wanted to tell you. What the F... now? You're so dramatic for no reason. I think it's a pretty good reason to be dramatic about. And who will do it any good? It is done and over with. No need to make this a big deal. I'm not. What is going on? You good, Sumu? Sus. If you want to tell us something, just spit it out. See, there is no need for all this. There is for me. Atsumu, what is going on? Hey, Tsumu, you okay? Is it really necessary to drag it out like this? Atsu, what's up? You can always call me, you know? Samu, I can't say it otherwise. Not him ignoring you. Everyone, calm down. Fine. Atsumu, this isn't funny. No. No, it's not.
My father never talked a lot. He just took a walk around the block.
What the F? Who cares? What is this about? I'm so confused right now. What Why is he talking about his father?
Till all his anger took a hold of him, and then he'd hit.
What? What do you mean he hit? Why? Atsu, is this a joke? You can't joke about this. Osamu, tell me this isn't true.
My mother never cried a lot.
Samu, this isn't funny. Is this true or not?
She took the punches, but she never fought.
Holy shit. Are you being serious? This isn't a joke or a challenge. I don't think so. Even they wouldn't joke about this.
Till she said, I'm leaving and I'll take the kids. So she did.
Oh God. This can't be real. Tsumu, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Atsumu, I swear if you make sure you cry because of a stupid challenge, you will regret it. It was as if at that moment, no matter how cruel it would be or what implications it had, they all clung to the possibility that neither of the twins meant what they said. Stunned and frozen in shock, they watched as the dots appeared once more.
I say they're just the ones who gave me life, but I truly am my parents' child.
You're nothing like them, Atsumu. Yes, Osamu's right. You were born to it doesn't have to define you.
Scattered across my family line, I'm so good at telling lies.
Sam? Lies? What lies?
That came from my mother's side, told a million to survive.
What kind of lies? Sometimes you have to lie to your family to be treated acceptable by them. I hate to agree with him, but Oshijima's right. Toru, they don't define you.
Scattered across my family line, God, I have my father's eyes.
We can't help what we look like, but that says nothing about who you are as a person.
But my sisters when I cry.
What did he do to you? Why did you never say anything? Osamu, Atsumu, we could have helped you. Yes, was this going on all this time? It's not that easy to ask for help. It would require realizing that something was wrong, but if it's all that you know, that is difficult.
I can run, but I can't hide from my family life.
You don't need to run anymore, Tsumu. We are here for you.
It's hard to put it into words, how the holidays will always hurt. I watch the fathers with their little girls and wonder what I did to deserve this.
Nothing. Atsumu, nothing justifies what you did. Kyo is right. It wasn't your fault. Of course it wasn't. Atsumu, if he hurt you, it is his fault alone. You were just a child.
How could you hurt a little kid? I can't forget, I can't forgive you.
You don't owe them your forgiveness. If he hurt you, you have every right to be mad at him and never forgive that.
Because now I'm scared that everyone I love will leave me.
Atsumu, I would never leave you. Certainly not because of this. None of us would. I know that Shinsuke feels the same. Samu, I'm sorry that I couldn't be there for you in high school. I didn't know, but I should have. But I won't leave you. Never. Me neither. I'm sorry, Samu. I'll do everything I can to make sure you believe me when I say I will stay by your side. Me too. Tsumu, we are your team. We have your back no matter what. Exactly. Atsumu, you are not the one who has to do anything. It is your father who needs to make amends. Exactly. You are nothing like that jerk. Samu, please come home. I'm on my way. Atsumu, you stay right where you are. I'm on my way to you. Me too. Shinsuke should come home soon as well. Okay. Samu, we'll be waiting for you. Please be careful. Osamu, Atsumu, Sakusa, Komori, Eren, Suna, and Akagi are offline. That was heavy. Yes. I didn't think the Miyas had such a bad past. Sometimes you don't see what's behind the curtain. Taichi also always plays strong. Yes, these things are often masked well both by the victim and the abuser. Can someone call Tendu to check up on his boyfriend? On it. You? I don't like him, but I'm not heartless. And Tendu is actually very likable. Agreed. Satori is the most caring person I know. He even gets you to take a break if necessary. Good point. I'll take Tsunoya as well. Atsumu? Kira flinched, startled by the sudden noise. He looked up surprised. From the hallway, he heard Sakusa and Eren rushing to take off their shoes. Kiyomi? Why are you so stressed? He threw a fleeting gaze at the former captain but didn't falter to answer his question. I'm sorry, Shin. He rushed past him, leaving the other even more confused and concerned than before. Quickly, his attention turned to Eren, who luckily showed a little more restraint than Sakusa. Atsumu sent some concerning messages to the volleyball JC. It seemed he waited for us to be out of the house. Kira's eyes widened and his heart sank. He felt cold dread filling his veins as he was reminded of a certain memory from high school that made his heart stop. He felt his brain short circuit and turned around to run the way Sakusa was headed and assure himself of Atsumu's well-being, but Eren stopped him. His hand closed around his wrist and his eyes were filled with understanding. It's not the same as in high school, but it does provide a lot more context to what happened back then. He handed him his phone with the chat openly displayed. The more he read, the heavier his heart got until his sight blurred. How did we not notice? Because Atsumu didn't want us to know. Eren gulped. His voice was akin to a whisper, and the reassuring smile he gave Kita was shaky. In silent understanding, they both turned around at the same time. We already know that Kiyomi has a difficult family situation. I think learning that Atsumu struggled in similar ways without him knowing shocked him even more. Kita nodded slowly. At once he understood what caused the raven to rush past them with little regard for his confusion. This hit too close to home for him. Now that he understood, he too could feel his whole being pulled toward the setter, apologies already on his tongue. When they arrived at their bedroom, Atsumu had long buried his face against Sakusa's chest. The taller held him tight, his eyes glassy as he patted over Atsumu's back soothingly. Though Kita wasn't sure if it was to soothe himself or the blonde, he was clearly affected to the point of tears. More so, he didn't even look fully present anymore. Atsumu? He turned his head sideways, facing them. His eyes were red-rimmed but void of tears. For a moment they seemed almost empty until they focused on Kita's. Have you read it? He nodded slowly and moved closer, sitting down on the edge of the bed. I'm sorry that I never told you. No, Atsumu, none of this is your fault. You don't owe us an explanation. And what he did to you also wasn't your fault. No child deserves to be hit, no matter what. I know. It was hard hearing him so uncharacteristically quiet. I know. He gulped, took a deep breath and tried again, but no sound escaped his mouth. Take your time. There is no rush. Upon noticing Atsumu's struggle, Sakusa subconsciously pulled him closer, his eyes still unfocused. I have healed since then. I know that I'm safe now. I realized that it wasn't my fault. I couldn't have talked about it if I didn't. This is why you never knew. He was already gone in high school, but I still felt so guilty. I couldn't say it. I knew of it. He drew a couple more shaky breaths, and Kita reached out to take his hand, which the blonde accepted with a smile. So now that you're better, you could. He nodded carefully. I'm sick of hiding and feeling ashamed. Part of me wants to scream it from the rooftops. But this is a good start, right? Yes, I am proud of you. Atsumu, even if you have healed and understand that you weren't at fault, it's okay to grieve the life you could have had if he hadn't been such a jerk. It's okay to hurt and be angry. You have every right to be. Surprised, they looked up at Sakusa. Now it was Atsumu's turn to pull him tighter. Yeah, I guess it'll always hurt a little. With a small chuckle that followed, the first tear fell. I can't regret things too much. The life that I lived brought me to you, and that's... We would have found you no matter what. In this and any future life, I'll always find you. Atsumo's eyes glossed over, and finally he could cry. Within seconds they had wrapped him in a group embrace. Although healed, the scars will remain, and on bad days, hanging with dark clouds, they hurt. But on those days and any other, they would still be right by his side to ease the pain. Osamu wasn't sure how to feel now that it was all out in the open. His past had been a silent, invisible weight he carried with him for so long that it was almost unfathomable to see it dragged out into the limelight. Part of him never wanted anyone to know. It felt like he failed them, Atsumu most of all, and he didn't want people to see that. But another part was relieved. He wouldn't have done this if he didn't think it was time. Now, there was no going back. He had still been at the restaurant by design. He didn't want to be confronted with his partner's worry right away, and even now he hesitated. The only thing keeping him moving was his promise. They didn't know the full story yet, and he feared if they did, they would resent him, or at the very least, think less of him. The fear someone might find out had kept him at a certain distance, and he knew that they noticed, although they couldn't quite place it. It was no way to live, too exhausting, and no way to build a solid foundation in a relationship. And today it would end. He dreaded coming home, but he had to face this. Mechanically, he stepped through their front door. He didn't bother taking off his shoes as he already heard the steps echo from the living room, and in seconds Akagi had wrapped his arms around him. Thank goodness, you're alright. I'm sorry for worrying you. He meant it, although his voice was void of any warmth. Samu, was it all true? Did you mean it? He nodded, his eyes still glued to the ground. Yes, our father would hit us when we were younger, up until we turned 11, when mother finally took us and left. Komori drew in a sharp breath and clasped his hands over his mouth. Come inside first. Will, why didn't you tell me? I could have helped you, like you always help me. The accusation in his voice was weak, drowned out by confusion and hurt. I was scared you would hate me. Everything in the chat was true, but it wasn't the whole story. We would never hate you. You can't know that. Okay, let's sit down. And if you can, tell us why you think we would hate you. He nodded. He was willing to go along with whatever they wanted. If after this they told him to leave and never come back, he would do that too. It took me too long to realize what was going on because I wasn't his main target. Atsumu shielded me. I should have protected him, but he protected me, and he didn't even say a word about it. For years after it started, I still didn't know. Atsumu hit me when he would get angry, distract me when he let it out on mom, and took my punishments for me, claiming fault. And I didn't even know. I still loved that bastard. I was oblivious and would even get mad when Atsumu spoke badly about him. But instead of telling me the truth, Atsumu tried to forgive him, for my sake. He tried to make peace, which obviously didn't work. And when he left, he even missed him because he'd gotten so used to making excuses for him. He stared down at the table, clenching his hands into fists and unclenching them. When I learned what happened all the time, I was just furious. I hated him, felt utterly betrayed, and I was mad at Atsumu for never telling me. The more I learned and realized in retrospect, the worse it got. Though in reality, I just hated myself for failing my brother. That he missed him and forgave him when he shouldn't was my fault, even though he had it so much worse. Samu, you were a child. So was Tsumu. We were twins, but somehow he realized first, and instead of running to me crying as usually, at any minor thing, he decided to hide it from me. Exactly. He decided that. It was neither of your fault. You were children, but he decided to hide it. That's why you didn't know, and that's why it isn't your fault. Yoshida. Suna visibly flinched and halted as Osamu said the name. Confused, Akagi and Komori exchanged a glance. Who is Yoshida? Atsumo's ex-boyfriend. Abusive ex-boyfriend. If I ever see him near my brother again, he won't live to see the next day. But it took months before Atsumo told anyone. Where do you think he learned to tolerate such behavior? That was your father, not you. If I hadn't defended him, he might have never either. Osamu, you couldn't know. Atsumo doesn't blame you, and we won't hate you because you reacted the way any child would in a situation you couldn't control. Atsumo reacted differently. Because you saw it first. Be honest, Samu, if you had been the one, wouldn't you have shielded Tsumu as well? It turned quiet after that, and Osamu gulped. For the first time, he allowed himself to consider that he might not have been at fault, as he found himself at a loss for an answer. He started shaking and tears built up in his eyes. Before he knew it, they had wrapped him in their arms again, and Akagi reached out to wipe his tears away. You're not at fault, and we don't hate you. I won't get tired of saying this until you believe it. Osamu's voice was gone. He was so grateful that they stayed, but not a sound left his mouth. They didn't care, just hugged him more tightly. We love you. I promise, from now on, I will always be there for you. Me too. You don't have to be afraid to tell us anything, but it's okay if that needs time. He broke down even more as they chipped away at the walls he had carefully constructed for years. They say time would heal all wounds, but time alone wasn't enough. But maybe their care could be. Tsukishima was in the kitchen putting the groceries away he had bought a few minutes prior, when he heard the front door open and shut again. He smiled a little to himself when he heard Hinata's tired groan from the hallway. It was rare, but once in a while the ginger actually managed to reach his limits. He was interrupted in his task of sorting the items in front of him as the smaller let his body slump against Tsukishima's. The blonde chuckled. Did the team finally manage to tire you out? Who do I have to thank? Bokuto or Atsumu? Shut up. I hate you. Hinata whined and punched him weakly in his side, causing the other to laugh again. Well, I should better leave you alone then. He loosened Hinata's grip on him and turned around to emphasize his point. The ginger whined and held onto his shirt. No, Tsuki, don't be mean. A pout appeared on the smallest face and made him look too cute to be legal. It made the other want to tease him a little more, but he knew that now wasn't the time nor the place for that. Hinata never minded giving or receiving physical affection, but it wasn't until he was truly exhausted that he got clingy. He needed the touch of his boyfriend's, soothing pats on his back and gentle kisses on his hair, as well as tight hugs to calm him down. The spiker had a hard time relaxing by himself when he passed a certain level of exhaustion and would get easily irritated. They learned this early on in their relationship. It was the cutest thing Tsuki had ever witnessed when one day they were over at Hinata's house, they were still in high school, and Shoyo had gotten into this state of restless exhaustion. But none of them knew what to do back then. The cute part was Natsu walking up to her brother and simply sitting down on his lap, effectively grounding him as he started to braid her orange curls per her request. She asked him so innocently, but Tsukishima was sure that she noticed that something was wrong with him. She planned this and looked out for her older brother. It earned her Tsukishima's respect, no matter how annoying the younger could be sometimes. He was grateful that Hinata got to grow up in such a loving family. And even though he would never say it out loud, he promised to look out for him on her behalf ever since they moved in together. So instead of teasing him further, the blonde turned around and gently cupped Hinata's cheeks, pulling his head closer and placed soft kisses on his hair. "Give me 5 more minutes to finish this, and then we can cuddle if you like." Hinata grimaced a little, but nodded. However, instead of leaving the kitchen, his arms snuck around Tsukishima's waist again and he hit his face against his back. "Sho, I can't finish this if you hug me like that." "Yes, you can." "How, if I'm allowed to ask?" "I don't know. Be creative." His grip tightened and Tsukishima laughed at his logic. He loosened his grip yet again, but before the other could complain, he scooped him up in his arms. He kissed his forehead, enjoying his perplexed expression, and with a few steps, he carried him to the couch, placing him gently on the soft pillows. 5 more minutes, okay? Rest for a bit. Tadashi should be home soon, and then he can cuddle you while I make dinner, or the other way around. What do you think? Hinata said nothing. He seemed a bit conflicted and avoided eye contact. A worried frown appeared on Tsukishima's face. That bad? The ginger still didn't answer, but Tsuki knew better than to take it personally. He rushed to the kitchen and simply settled for putting the things that needed to be kept cold in the fridge before returning in less than 2 minutes. The spiker seemed to be very invested in tracing the patterns on the fabrics of one of the pillows. A method to calm himself, but a slight frown and the hint of tension in his muscles remained. With a few steps, Tsukishima closed the distance between them and climbed onto the couch next to him. Big or little spoon? He already knew the answer. On days like this, Hinata didn't want to be in charge, just to be held. He just wanted to let himself fall into the warm embrace and gentle hands of his boyfriends. Little. The taller complied and wrapped his arms around him and gently caressed the skin on his forearms with his fingertips, following imaginary lines and drawing invisible patterns. He left soft, tender kisses on his neck and nuzzled his nose in the orange strands of hair. They didn't say anything. Every unspoken word was displayed in little gestures and tranquilizing touches. Slowly but surely, Shoyo's breathing calmed and he relaxed into Tsukishima's arms. I love you, Kei. A familiar heat rose to his cheeks and he placed another kiss on his neck right beneath his hairline. I love you too, Sho. It was such a peaceful and calm atmosphere, truly a rarity in this house, that the two almost fell asleep by the time Yamaguchi came home. The former pinch server looked around, surprised as none of them greeted him at the door as usual. His wonder grew as he saw the pile of groceries on the kitchen counter, but it soon turned to fondness at the sight of his sleepy boyfriends cuddling on the couch. Tsukishima's eyes opened halfway at the sound of steps approaching, and he seemed almost puzzled for a moment before trying to get up. No, stay. But don't worry, I'll make dinner. You keep an eye on our sleepy crow, would you? He didn't seem completely convinced, and Tadashi knew that he felt like he was putting all the work on him, but that was okay. He ruffled through the blonde curls while passing, smirking at the blush that betrayed Tsukishima, who tried to look offended by the gesture, and walked to their bedroom to take a quick shower and change into something more comfortable. As soon as he was done, he busied himself with preparing dinner. One look at the clock told him that Kageyama should be home soon as well. He sent him a quick message for the details, so that the food wouldn't be cold when he arrived. However, that turned out to be completely unnecessary when the other walked through the door 10 minutes later. He peeked into the hallway, hands still wet from washing the vegetables and a cloth on hand. The smaller was quick to dry them and let them wander to either side of the ravenet's face as he greeted him with a loving kiss. When they separated, he noticed the slight blush on Kageyama's cheeks as he looked at him in awe. What? You look good in an apron. It looks cute. Yamaguchi felt his own face heat up and laughed. Kageyama was always either really blunt or stumbled over his own words a lot when saying sappy and cute stuff like this. There was close to no in between. Thank you. I bet you would look good in one as well, so why don't you put one on and help me with dinner? He pulled him down by his collar and placed another kiss on his lips. He winked at him and squeezed his hand one more time before returning to the kitchen. Behind him, he heard a very flustered Kags mumbling something about taking a shower first, and it made his heart flutter to know that he still had this effect on his boyfriends. Soon after, someone joined him in the kitchen, but it wasn't Tobio as expected. Tsuki, where's Tobio? The blonde simply reached for the salad and started slicing it into pieces. Cuddling Shoyo? Yamaguchi looked at him, eyes narrowed in suspicion. Didn't I tell you to rest? I felt bad for leaving you alone with this. I didn't even finish to put the groceries away. Yamaguchi sighed. If he was honest with himself, he had already expected something like this. Contrary to popular belief, Tsukishima was very caring and loved to spoil his boyfriends just as much as he loved to tease them. But sometimes he wouldn't allow himself to take a break in favor of taking care of his boyfriends. He took on too much of the responsibility for all of them, which is why Yamaguchi gave him a stern look at his confession. You looked out for Shoyo. That was more important. and if it made you relax as well, even better. He tried reaching for the cutting board, but Tsuki caught his wrist and placed feather-light kisses on the soft skin, sensing the calm and steady pulse right underneath the surface. Let me help. Okay. Yamaguchi whined as Tsukishima put the knife aside and pulled him in for a real kiss, hands intertwined to either side of their bodies. That's not kiss. Fair. Kiss. The blonde peppered his face with kisses until he was a flustered mess and his resolve crumbled. Fine, but you are gonna take a bath with Sho later. Tsukishima chuckled. As if that would be a punishment. It's so you finally allow yourself to relax a little and rest. God, I'm dating 3 idiots. He resumed making the dinner as Tsukishima laughed again, placing one last kiss on his neck. Thanks for looking out for me. Of course. Dinner came around and Hinata somehow convinced Kageyama to sit on his lap while eating. None of them could blame him though for saying yes. The ginger looked unbearably cute, huddled up in a blanket and completely content with his position. It was impossible to say no. Did someone ever tell you how spoiled you are? Tsukishima teasingly smirked at the other, who simply ignored him in favor of devouring his food, but a delicate red tainted his cheeks regardless. You shouldn't be surprised. After all, you are the one spoiling him. Tsukishima's face heated up. Shut up, Yams. Aww, come on, Tsuki. They laughed. It was supposed to be a relaxing movie night. Hinata was excited the whole week and urged time to move faster. They met at Kageyama's house. His parents and sister weren't home and greeted each other with tender kisses and the usual bickering between Kageyama and Tsukishima. Hinata rushed inside almost jolly as he and Yam started building a comfortable fort in front of the TV where they would sleep later. Tsukishima wanted to make a snide remark about how childish that was, but seeing them both so happy and content rendered him speechless. You're drooling. Kageyama nudged the middle blocker in his side and walked past him, his arms loaded with snacks. At least, I don't look like a tomato. What is it, King? Excited for tonight? He smirked and got closer, his thumb gently, teasingly, brushed over his bottom lip. The taller observed Kageyama's face taking a delicate shade of crimson. The way you blush makes one assume that you are a virgin. Even more blood rushed to his cheeks and he avoided eye contact. It startled Tsukishima. Wait, but I thought you and Hinata... No, we have never... He trailed off. Wait, so did you and Yams? Tsukishima's own cheeks turned bright red and he nodded slightly. They both glanced at their boyfriends. It was honestly hard to imagine that they were talking about adult things while the other two were building a pillow fort in the living room. Tsukishima cleared his throat. I'm gonna, get some drinks. Kageyama nodded stiffly. They cuddled up together, talked, played, and ate dinner before changing into pajamas to get comfortable while watching the movie. Hinata felt a bit uneasy when asking if he could change in the bathroom, but Kageyama wanted to change somewhere else as well, so it wasn't that embarrassing. The two of them tried to ignore Yamaguchi's and Tsukishima's teasing smirks, as well as their own blushes as they walked off in different directions. Hinata hesitated while changing. His fingers hovered over the clasp of his binder. He knew that he couldn't wear it at night. He knew. So why was it suddenly so tempting to ignore the warnings? It was dangerous and could cause serious damage. That was exactly the reason why he stopped having sleepovers with Kageyama ever since they became more intimate with each other. It was easier to find an excuse not to meet up than for why he didn't want to cuddle while sleeping. But today, he needed to think of something. Anything believable so that they would let him sleep on his own. He bit his lip in concentration. "Hinata, are you alright?" The sudden noise startled him. Tsukishima knocked on the door gently. "Shoyo?" "Yes, I was just in thoughts." He quickly threw on an oversized shirt from Kageyama. "One night will be okay. He'll survive it." The ginger took one last look at his reflection. His fingers traced his jawline and his chest where the binder was. Underneath the clothing, skin and bones, his heart was hammering against his ribs, and he gulped. When he opened the door, he greeted the tall blonde with his usual bright smile, trying simply not to think of that. They watched 3 movies altogether, only interrupted by Tsukishima and Hinata discussing if the first or second one was better, for literally 30 minutes, had a pillow fight started by a sneak attack from behind from Yamaguchi, and Kageyama chased Hinata because he stole his pillow. They laughed. Yams and Kex cried and argued with the TV because their favorite gay ship in the 3rd movie wasn't canon and the producers just had to prove it by letting one of them marry a woman, and Hinata was still sulking because Kageyama agreed with Tsukishima during their first discussion. "Stop sulking, you look too cute." It had the opposite effect, which made Tsukishima laugh. "Come on, Sho." He huffed. "I bet I can distract you." He moved closer and framed the smaller between his arms. Hinata's blush darkened and he leaned closer to Tsukishima, meeting him halfway in a heated kiss. His mind went blank and he let Tsukishima take the lead. He moaned as he felt Kei's lips on his neck, and he almost forgot. That was until a hand found the seam of his shirt. Out of reflex, his fingers closed around his wrist. "Huh?" He turned his head away, embarrassed. The taller backed away a little to give him space. "Shoyo?" He avoided eye contact. "We don't have to go any further if you're not ready yet, and we won't try anything if you don't want that." He nodded slowly. "Thank you. I'm sorry." "What? Don't apologize. It's okay if you're not ready yet, or if you'll never be. We love you just the way you are." Yamaguchi placed a soft kiss on Hinata's cheek. He felt the warmth underneath the skin and smiled. "Don't be embarrassed. That's perfectly normal." Exactly. Hinata would like to say, no it's not, that he wasn't normal, and he felt awful for lying to them. He wanted to be intimate with them, but he was too afraid of their reaction. Come on, let's see if we can find another movie. The next day at training, Hinata was giving it his all. He focused on every little movement and immediately jumped into action when the opportunity presented itself. The ginger was desperately clinging to the distraction. He loved volleyball, but today it was nothing more than something to keep his mind busy. His insecurities had worsened these past days, along with his body dysphoria. The evening he had spent with the others played on repeat in his head. His chest hurt when he finally took off the binder in the middle of the night and reminded him that his physique was far from what he desired. That in itself was manageable to some extent, but he was afraid that the others would see. His chest was the hardest thing to hide for a longer period of time. It would expose him if he wasn't careful. He sprinted forward to receive the ball. His breathing turned more and more to panting. Hinata wanted to trust them, wanted to be intimate with them so badly. He groaned as he felt his lungs and ribs aching. Why did it have to be like this? Why couldn't he have been born male? Another dive and then a quick attack. Kageyama's set was as precise as always, and Hinata smashed the ball into the opponent's side of the court. No point. Noya kept it alive and the game continued. Hinata sprinted and jumped again and again. The aching turned to pain, but the spiker refused to acknowledge it. Soon, the voices around him became more and more of a distant whisper, and his sight started to blur. Still, he didn't allow his focus to slip. With all his strength, he prepared for the next jump, for the next attack, but as soon as his feet left the ground, everything was gone. The blinding lights, the net, the court, and even the other players. For a moment, he felt nothing, not his limbs or the air, not even the fact that he was falling. It was an almost peaceful state of mind in comparison to what followed. Even before he hit the ground, a sharp pain tore through the darkness. Something in his left side cracked and fractured further as a result of the impact when he collided with the hard wooden floor. It knocked the air out of his lungs, and no matter how much he tried to get it back, it felt like he couldn't. He couldn't breathe. He was alone, and he couldn't breathe. The pain pierced in waves through his body whenever he moved, but he couldn't stop. It felt like he was suffocating. Hinata! Suga's voice echoed from somewhere in the distance. Can you hear me? He managed to nod somehow. Good. Daichi, you need to keep him still. It wasn't until they held him down that Hinata even noticed that he was moving, trying to curl himself up into a ball. Shoyo! Tsukishima's voice interrupted the silence and the increasing static that got louder by the minute in Hinata's ears. I know that you are worried, but give him space. Everybody, take a step back. Kei, come here. It was chaos. Hinata was trying to decipher what happened around him, but to no avail. Hinata, listen closely, okay? Just try to breathe calmly, like I do, alright? He tried, but as soon as he breathed in deeply, causing his chest to move, another wave of pain hit him and he could hear himself whimper. Automatically, his body tried to curl up again to protect itself, but the others held him in place. Don't take deep breaths, just shallow and slow. This time it worked better. The ginger winced whenever the pain became too intense. The voices around him died down again. There were some new ones as well, but he was so caught up in concentrating on his breathing that he didn't pay attention to them. To which hospital are you bringing him? So that I can inform the family. The hospital in... Okay, thanks. Hinata felt how someone lifted him from the ground and onto a stretcher. He tried opening his eyes and blinked against the bright light. Are you the teacher? Yes. So you'll accompany him in the ambulance? Yes. Shoyo! Yamaguchi rushed to his side as he saw the ginger opening his eyes. Tadashi! Please stay back. You can visit him later. You're going to be okay, Sho. We will be there. Dashi! He tried reaching for him, but the paramedic stepped between them. Hey kid, how are you feeling? She tried keeping him engaged in the conversation while transporting him to the vehicle. I feel... funny. She smiled and checked for his injuries again. Can you tell me where it hurts? He nodded, but before he could answer, they started driving and the movement sent a wave of pain through his ribs. A pained yelp escaped his throat, and she was immediately there to help. My ribs and chest. It's okay. We do our best so that you will get better soon. You are in good hands. Again, he nodded. The whole way, Hinata flinched when they had to stop or the road was uneven underneath them. He could see Takada flinching in sympathy with him every time he winced. When they finally arrived at the hospital, they did a CT and MRI to locate the fracture precisely and make sure that the tissue around the injury wasn't damaged. They gave him painkillers and told him to rest before leaving the player on his own in one of the hospital rooms. Hinata was staring at the ceiling, recalling the events of today. It was his fault. He took it too far, wore the binder for too long and pushed himself past his limits at practice. Hinata, how are you feeling? His gaze shifted to his teacher. He sighed and winced when his ribs moved. I'm fine. I'm sorry. He looked away, suddenly very invested with the patterns on the blanket. Hinata, you might have acted a little irresponsible and impulsive, but I doubt that the others will have a lot of reproaches. You don't need to apologize to anyone. But I caused so much trouble. I'm sure they're all just happy that you are alright, more or less. Hinata felt the tears in his eyes threaten to spill over. It's gonna be okay, rest now, and I'll tell the others that you're going to be fine. He nodded while suppressing the sobs trying to escape his throat. Hinata? He woke up slowly. The others are here to see you. Okay. Okay, I'll get them. Takada left and Hinata turned to face the door, watching him leave. He could feel the fabric of the hospital gown on his skin moving against it. It took his mind a moment to catch up with the situation. The fabric touched his skin. He wasn't wearing his binder. Wait! But it was too late. The moment he raised his voice, the door opened, and most of the team stormed the room. Leading the group was Tsukishima with Yamaguchi by his side, holding his hand, and Kageyama following closely behind. For a few seconds, their eyes met. Hinata felt his face burn up in shame and hid it in the pillow. The abrupt movement caused the pain to flare up again, and he whined. He clung to the blanket nonetheless, hiding underneath it as much as possible. Oi, Seijoh! That looked so scary when you fell. It was all wham and bam and... Noya, he needs to rest. Please keep your voice down. Oh, right. Sorry. He's right though. You really had us worried there, Hinata. He didn't reply. All the others could see were the tips of orange hair peeking out from underneath the blanket. Can we maybe talk to him alone, please? What is that? Tsukishima becoming polite? Is the world ending? He was interrupted by Sugawara's elbow in his abdomen and a warning look from Daichi. Of course, Tsukishima. Tell him to get better soon. We will. They left until it was just the four of them. Hinata? Can you please, show your face? No, you'll hate me. No. Show, we would never hate you. Hinata whined and failed to suppress the sobs any longer. Are you in pain? Not really. Hinata, please talk to us. If it is about your breasts, we don't care. Tsuki! I mean, we will support you, and it doesn't change anything between us. What? He faltered, confused. How? You didn't notice? Noticed what? They had to open the binder so that you could breathe better. A choked sob escaped his throat and he clenched the fabric tighter. Everyone had seen it. Don't worry, as soon as the paramedics allowed it, Suga covered you with your jacket, and Noya and Tanaka made sure that no one was staring. No one in the team cares that you are not biologically male. It doesn't change the impression we have of you. Really? Of course. Please, look at us. He lifted the blanket slightly and looked at them with tears clouding his vision. Tsukishima moved to his side and reached for his hand. May I? The ginger nodded. Seijoh, it's okay. You are still you, the annoying, adorable decoy that all of us fell in love with. He blushed at his own words and avoided eye contact. But you're gay and I'm... Sho, I never saw you as a girl and that didn't change. He gently placed a hand on Hinata's cheek. Thank you. There's nothing you need to thank me for, and no one you need to apologize to. He kissed him gently, and the ginger leaned into the touch as much as he could. When they separated, Yamaguchi took Tsuki's place. His fingers gently caressed the skin of Hinata's hand as he whispered soothing promises into his ear while embracing him with one arm. Kex? His voice was strained from all the crying. The ravenet stared at the blanket with his typical dog expression. Why, I mean, how did you get injured? Hinata gulped. You saw. But I don't understand. I wasn't feeling good lately about myself, and it made me irresponsible. I wore the binder for too long. Why didn't you tell us? New tears gathered in his eyes. I was afraid. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you. I'm so sorry. I don't know why. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd lose you. He started rambling and sobbing, which made Yamaguchi hug him tighter, not tight enough to hurt him though. Shh, it's okay. It's okay. We're happy you told us now, even if it wasn't really your choice. I wish you could have told us on your own terms, but don't worry. We will be with you every part of the way from now on. Yes, we look out for you and you can always tell us if something is wrong. Just please don't do this again. You scared me. I won't. Somehow, in between all this chaos, he felt all the warmth and love they gave to him. And even though his face was still decorated with a steady stream of tears, his lips tucked upwards in his signature bright smile. I love you. We love you too. Kageyama was trying hard to predict the opponent's moves. The way the ball was passed, the angle in which they hit it, and the changing positions of the attackers and blockers. He was at his best today, and he wasn't the only one. Hinata was unusually quiet and concentrated. If the setter hadn't been so caught up in the game, he might have been worried about the ginger's lack of enthusiasm. Their last attack failed because Noya managed to get it in time. For the next one, they had to play even more aggressively and faster. He could see Hinata from the corner of his eye and managed to precisely determine the point where the ball needed to be so their spiker could hit it perfectly. But it never got to that. The ginger's form was off, and before Kageyama could react, he fell. Without hitting the ball, and without any attempt to soften the landing. He simply collided with the ground as a cracking sound echoed through the gym. Immediately, everyone's attention snapped to the injured and they rushed towards him. For a moment, Kageyama couldn't do anything but stare and watch the scene unfolding in front of him. He slowly moved towards the group forming around his boyfriend and was almost shoved aside by Tsukishima. Shoyo! He could tell that the other was panicking. He would be too. He was panicking, yet his body and mind were weirdly calm. But for the blonde, it was still different. He left 5 minutes ago to get his water bottle, only to come back and find his boyfriend unconscious on the ground without any idea of what happened. Everyone, take a step back. Daichi's words got him out of his head and into reality. He took Tsukishima by his arm and pulled him away from the others. What are you doing? Hinata! He's going to be alright. He fainted while jumping. It was probably a bit too much for him today. Why are you so calm? Okay. Tadashi joined them. He was shaking a little, but other than that, seemed more or less stable. I don't know. He didn't. He had no idea why he wasn't freaking out like them. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you. It's alright. Tsukishima took a deep breath. No, it's not. Yamaguchi took his hand and squeezed it reassuringly. Soon, Takeda returned with 2 paramedics in tow. They checked up on Hinata, and one of them went to get a stretcher. Kageyama could feel Tsukishima getting agitated again next to him. What is it? What is wrong with him? We can't be sure yet, but it's probably a fractured rib caused by the unsafe use of a binder. Binder? He carefully lifted his shirt, exposing a simple white binder, and started opening it. His colleague offered him a pair of scissors, but he declined and she put them away before helping him to shift Hinata's body on the stretcher. Shoyo! Suddenly, Yamaguchi moved past them as he saw that Hinata had opened his eyes. Dashi! Please stay back. You can visit him later. Kageyama took his hand as they watched them taking their boyfriend away. He is going to be alright. He caressed the back of Yamaguchi's hand with his thumb. The other nodded slowly and hugged him tightly, with Tsukishima hugging both of them from behind. Come on, let's get ready to visit him in the hospital. You don't mind, right? Yamaguchi blushed and looked at the ground. Huh? That he's trans. Of course not. I love him. He's our boyfriend. And I mean, he is such an amazing and caring person. Kay. I know. I'm sorry. I just had to make sure. They looked at each other thoughtfully. Do you think that's where he got hurt? Well, they said it was unsafe binding, so probably. Why? Why didn't he tell us? Hey, you three. I'm sure that it's nothing bad. Hinata was most likely just a little scared, that's all. He needs reassurance now, okay? They nodded. Okay, thanks, Tsuga-san. No problem. Come on, I'm sure we all want to know how he's doing. Kema noticed the new messages on his way to training while being dragged forward by Koro. He could barely decipher the text between the shaking of being dragged along and the tiredness hovering like a heavy weight above him, seeping into his muscles every step of the way. He got a new game and may or may not have been playing it all night. He was tempted to simply ignore the messages when something caught his attention. You could get out of training this way without getting yelled at. Now, that was a point. If he just told his coach he was too tired, he would earn himself a scolding. Not just from him, but Kuro as well. And probably Yaku. But if it wasn't his fault, if he simply fainted, they couldn't get mad at him, right? Besides, it wouldn't be the first time. He tended to get lightheaded when getting up too quickly, or even after training, so he doubt they'd make a big fuss about it. He was still a little indecisive when warm-up started. Yamamoto walked up to him while stretching, pushing him down further, which earned him a tired groan from the smaller and a half-hearted glare. Come on, Kema. Training's about to start. You could at least pretend to be a little motivated. Aren't you asking a little much? Can't remember the last time I saw Kema motivated. Inuoka laughed, while Kema posed like a drenched kitten being left in the rain. It was an almost miserable sight. Kenma, quit being so dramatic and stretch properly. If you don't, you're gonna be sore tomorrow. None of us want that. Kenma glared at both of them while fighting himself off the ground. Oh, he was definitely gonna do this challenge. They deserved it. With the last effort, he got up and stretched the bare minimum. Kuro came over halfway through to help him, much to Kenma's dismay. He would prefer to stay close to the cool gym floor. As soon as the game started, he forgot about his plans at first. His mind automatically locked on the challenge at hand, analyzing every move of the opponent and strategizing against them simultaneously. He observed the court, the players in each of the individual positions and stats. Kuro was playing against him today, an increasingly odd feeling mixed with an unfamiliar competitiveness. He wanted to win against him. It was an unlikely goal, considering that most of his current teammates were less experienced. An effort of the coach to see how well the team functioned with the third years out of the picture. The ball fell from his fingers and his set was off by far. For a second, he remained frozen in place, staring at his hands where the ball had been a few seconds prior. Confused, he blinked up at them as his mind still tried to catch up. The sudden realization hit him like a truck. This uncomfortable feeling, itching on his skin, invoked by Kuro's absence on his own team, would soon become his new normal. Rather, the comfort of being with him was out of the place. Temporary. He knew that. I had long since known it. Part of him always knew. He was too smart, too much of an overthinker not to know. He might have even known since they became friends. But he always thought he had time. Time, as he now realized, that was quickly draining, like water slipping from his fingers no matter how close he pressed his hands together. He stole a glance at Kuro, panting. The taller looked at him with a mixture of confusion and concern reflected on his face. He looked like he wanted to say something, but the coach called for order again, and they turned away from one another, assuming their former positions. While playing, his mind was split in two. He had always avoided the topic of Kuro's graduation. The unsuspected action of the coach had him blindsided, and now he couldn't shut up the thoughts anymore. Half of his brain worked on a new flow of what-ifs while simultaneously trying to regain the state of blissful ignorance from before, while the other half focused on the game. His sets were sloppy by his standards, his strategies mediocre at best. The only thing saving them was that Kuro's concentration seemed disrupted as well. As time went on, everything slowly became overwhelming. His already few and scarce energy resources he had from the little sleep, none, he had gotten, were depleted within minutes, and he was dragging himself over the course, having to run more than usual since Yaku, of course, was on the other team. He was panting. Occasionally, black dots would dance in his vision, and the cool floor looked all the more attractive the more time passed. The only good thing about his growing exhaustion was that it chased the thoughts from his head, as even thinking became too much of a waste of energy. Slowly, his focus on the actual game returned as the rest was banished to the back of his consciousness to be dealt with another time. It didn't help much. When he stumbled and almost fell, he remembered. The challenge. The golden, cat-like eyes glanced over at Kuro. He tried to predict his reaction. It shouldn't be too bad. A deep breath. Then, as he stretched his hands up in the air to prepare another set, he started falling. Gradually, he let his body tip over and gravity pull him downward. A sharp pain ignited in his side as he collided with the floor, but he willed himself not to move. It wasn't as hard as expected. Actually, this was kind of nice. His breathing slowly calmed down as he laid on the ground, finally able to relax his tired muscles and rest. He tried blocking it all out. The sounds around him swelled into a panic whisper. His name was being called from all directions after they realized that he wouldn't get up as usual. He tried to tune it out. It was too loud, too hectic. He could only imagine what he must look like right now. Half curled up and unmoving on the ground, tired and maybe even frail, but he didn't care. By the time 2 arms wrapped around him, he was already content with just laying there and giving in to the exhaustion, at least for a while. Kenma. Koda's voice was soft, experienced with this kind of thing, yet, regardless, it was laced with worry. A tinge of guilt spread within Kenma's chest. Cool fingers wandered up to his forehead and down to his nose and chest to check his breathing. It tickled, and Kenma almost exposed himself. It wasn't a matter of self-control at this point. He truly felt the edges of his consciousness getting fuzzy, and part of him wanted to give into the sleep-like state of unconsciousness. What happened? Kenma, are you alright? Shut up, Liev. You know how much he hates loud noises. But... Yeah, we know. Sadly, this is not the first time. It's been a while, though. Oh man, I thought he was doing much better. What's wrong with him? Nothing is wrong with him. He's just prone to fainting when exhausted, that's all. Even though he tried to sound nonchalant, Kenma could hear the strain in the Libero's voice. It was enough. No matter how much he wished to give in to the darkness luring him in, promising sweet rest, he couldn't just yet. He carefully opened his eyes and blinked against the bright light in a futile attempt to make it less blinding, less painful to look at. Back with us, kitten? His eyes wandered up to Kuro's. They were warm, filled with compassion and care, and suddenly Kenma felt his throat tightening. He felt the urge to apologize even though he didn't know exactly what for. Maybe for simply being the worst friend between the two of them. Because he agreed to do a stupid challenge that caused Kuro to worry. Or because he caught feelings he shouldn't have and couldn't let him go. Because he was selfish enough not to be happy for him once Kuro would leave for college. Too selfish to be excited on his behalf when he'd get a girlfriend. Perhaps even too selfish to attend his best friend's wedding one day because he couldn't bear not being the one he said his promises to. A few tears welled up in his eyes as he tried, hiding his face behind the long strands of hair and against Kuro's chest. I'm sorry. His head snapped up. Coach ordered them off the court to take a break, and the tall lad nodded, quickly assembling Kenma in his arms and carrying him to the benches off to the side. He rubbed soothing patterns into his skin, and when he saw Kenma's distressed expression, he gently kept his face and covered his ears. It's okay. Just focus on me. The golden eyes shimmered with suppressed tears as he nodded slowly. Gradually, his breathing calmed again. He sat beside Kuro, defeated. I'm sorry. It's not your fault that you fainted. Though, maybe stop playing games all night. You really gave me a heart attack. Kenma's brows furrowed slightly. I'm just kidding. That's not what I meant. Then tell me, what did you mean? He didn't look at him. The thought alone made his cheeks feel hot. I'm sorry that I can't be happy for you. I tried, but that sparked his interest. Kenma didn't need to turn around to know that the other was watching him intently. I don't think I understand. You will be in college soon. That's great for you, but it means he'll leave me alone, and I can't be happy about that. Kenma, I'd never just leave you alone. If you need me, I'll be there. Not forever. One day, you'll get a girlfriend, and then you'll marry her, and she'll make you happy, and... He didn't know where it all was coming from, but for the first time in his life, once he started to talk, he couldn't stop. I don't think I can do that. I should be happy for you, but I doubt that I could even attend your wedding, let alone wish you too well. Because I couldn't bear seeing you like that. His hands gripped around the wooden surface of the bench so hard that it hurt. Why? He tried to read what Koro was thinking from his tone alone, still too afraid to face him, but it was futile. Because I like you. I like you, Koro. There was a heartbeat of silence stretched between them, torn by a sudden gasp from the court. Oh my god! Are you seeing this, Fukunaga? Progress! Fukunaga nodded in silent agreement. And it wasn't even Kuro. I must admit, that's a bit unexpected. It also means that you owe me 500 yen. I know Kenma can do it. You lose, Kuro! The blonde felt like he might just implode from embarrassment and hid further behind this veil of hair. Suddenly, Kuro burst out laughing. Kenma looked at him confused from between the strands of hair. Well, this wasn't how I imagined it, but I guess I've simply taken a little too long. Kenma, I don't want a girlfriend, and I'll always be there for you because I like you too. So much. Really, it would be a shame if you didn't attend my wedding, considering that I sure as hell hope you'd be the one standing by my side. Slow down, don't you think you're moving a little too fast? Shut up. I was being romantic. I'm not surprised that you don't know what that is. He tried turning his attention back to Kenma, but... I can be romantic. Ashley... He bit his tongue, suddenly beet red in the face. Silence spread through the gym as though everyone held their breath for a second. Then the silver-haired leaned down to Yaku slightly in an attempt to whisper and completely oblivious to any consequences. I thought we didn't tell anyone yet. Fast, but not fast enough, Yaku covered his mouth with his hands and Whisper yelled, "Shut up!" A dangerous smirk spread on Koro's face. Oh, so it looks like Yaku-senpai has a thing for his kohai. Shut up. What? Me? I'm just saying you're really cute together. And I said, shut up. Their banter continued, and Kenma, glad about the distraction, simply let himself fall against Koro's side, content with just tuning it all out. Kendaichi! He set the ball toward the spiker, who awaited it and made a near-flawless attack, spiking it deep into the heart of their opponent's court. Wataru, however, playing against them today, was prepared and received it. It flew high up in the air, only a bit off from Yahaba's position, who adjusted and set it towards Kunimi. Aikawa observed them closely, a smile playing on his lips. Passing to Kunimi at this point in the game wasn't smart. It was early, and he could see the tiredness still reflected in his eyes. He still played well, his attack wasn't easy to receive, but it was nowhere close to what he could do if he was thoroughly warmed up and focused on the game. He was confident Yahaba would make a great setter for the team the longer he played with them. In official games, he wasn't often on the court so far unless Oikawa got injured, but next year he'd be their regular setter. By then, it was important to learn about their spikers' individual abilities and quirks. Kunimi's attack was strong nonetheless. A certain sense of pride surged through him as he observed his teammates. They had all become extraordinary players, sharpening their skills and senses, and they trusted him. On the court, the odd distance between them seemed to grow much smaller. If he could, he would capture that moment forever. It was as if time was slowing down as he observed the harmony their play created. Even in training, and not utterly perfect since their team was split into two, to him it was beautiful, a safe haven. Watari was in the air, setting the ball toward Mad Dog on the outer side of the court. The spiker lunged with the fierce precision of a bloodhound after it into the air, finding his target effortlessly, his eyes zeroing in on it as the block rose before him, a wall he was determined to break. Everyone was in motion, repositioning themselves on the court as a reaction to the players around them, teammates as well as opponents. They adjusted their stance and focus on whatever could happen next, relying on their setter to guide them forward. It was what volleyball should. A sudden pain, intense enough to make the area feel numb at first, before bursting into alternating hot and ice-cold flames licking over his skin, exploded at the side of his head. It was followed by small jolts of pain surging through his head as he attempted to process the sensation. He barely felt himself stumble over, or the tears reflexively spilling from his eyes, but suddenly his hands collided with the wooden floor in a forgotten reflex, keeping him from tipping over. His other instinctively reached for his face, where the throbbing was the most intense, feeling for the injured area, and, a little too late, covering his eyes, that were quickly coating the skin in tears. Shock washed in waves through his system, and the arm he used to hold himself up broke away beneath him, making him fall forward and onto his side. He was shaking slightly, and every attempt of opening his eyes failed. It wasn't that his eyelids were too heavy as though consciousness was fading. It was as though his reflexes wouldn't allow it. With every wave of pain, new tears formed, making him blink rapidly while urging him to keep his eyes shut. His breathing turned shallow. He had gotten his fair share of injuries over the time, considering he trained a lot and strived to be a professional athlete. But he had never taken such a direct hit to the face, at least not recently, when his opponents and teammates had become a lot stronger as well. Why did it have to be Mad Dog? An involuntary groan, almost more of a whimper, escaped his lips. He hoped it was just the shock and pain keeping his muscles locked, paralyzing him. A concussion was the last thing he wanted. Iwa would be mad at him. The thought of the grumpy ace almost made him smile and brought him back to a suddenly increasing buzz of voices swelling around him to a unified, illegible mass of sound. It was almost suffocating, adding to the throbbing in his head, and it brought forth what he'd nearly forgotten, the challenge. How ironic that it would start like this. He meant to worry his teammates a bit, if they even would, but never intended to make it this realistic. Still, it was nice relaxing his muscles against the cool gym floor, letting the tears spill instead of fighting them, and allowing their words to morph into an illegible jumble of sounds like a distant crowd. It was soothing. He gave up on attempting to understand their words and simply basked in their vicinity in what hoped was concern for him and not mockery. Iwazumi didn't see what happened, only heard it. An ugly sound that shouldn't have been there in the first place. It sounded nothing like the clean, precise receive they grew to expect of Aikawa. Their captain might be a setter, but he was well versed in all necessary volleyball techniques and should at least be in the position to get to the ball, but no. This sounded utterly different. It was soon followed by the sound of the ball bouncing on the hard gym floor to the side. They had lost the point. Before Iwazumi could turn around to assess the reason behind their failed play, a thud echoed through the gym halls, and he could see the opponents on the other side of the court freeze. It looked as though they were uncertain about how to react at first, as though no one accounted for this possibility. Slowly, he turned around, unsure what to expect, but this wasn't it. Aikawa! For a moment, the connection to his muscles seemed severed as he urged them to move, but they refused to acknowledge his pleas. The setter sat hunched over on the ground, holding himself up with one arm and covering his face with the other. Nonetheless, Ivo was certain that tears were falling from his face. His last bits of rational thought diminished when the whimper echoed in the suddenly, almost eerily silent hall. Kawa! He stormed toward the setter, now cowering on the ground. The silence came to a sudden halt as chaos broke loose. What happened? I think he took Kiyotani's attack straight to the face. Damn. A slightly amused undertone mixed with Maki's words, yet it was overshadowed by worry. Gotta give you that, your attack is quite powerful if it can knock out hit. His sentence cut off, probably being nudged in the side by Madsen. Aikawa, are you okay? Iwazumi knelt down by his side, his own hands shaking as he wasn't sure whether he should touch the trembling setter or not, when suddenly he went almost still. Did he faint? Hey, wake up! Kawa, wake up! He shook him slightly, ignoring the growing unrest around him. Well done, Mad Dog. I know you didn't like him, but damn. Maki tried making light of the situation, but his voice wavered. Kiyotani was visibly taken aback, and although he looked like he wanted to snap back at him, he didn't. He couldn't. His eyes were glued to the unconscious setter on the ground. Stop it, Hanamaki. It's not his fault. He attacked as he should. It was an accident. Yahaba positioned himself in front of the older and between him and the spiker. It was the first time Iwazumi had seen him talk to a third year like that, but he didn't have the time to worry about that now. Aikawa, wake up! Just screaming at him probably wouldn't do much, and as an athlete, he should know better, but at the moment his mind seemed wiped clean of any actual useful knowledge. Even worse, the coach wasn't here today, leaving the responsibility in their hands alone. Madsen, could you... Aikawa stirred next to him. A quiet groan slipped from his lips, and he tried to fight himself up from the ground. Instinctively, Iwazumi reached out to stabilize him. Careful. Take it slow. His words were hushed, but determined. The setter looked up at him, and Iwa's heart clenched as he saw the deep hazel eyes covered by a thin veil of tears, and looking at him so intensely as though the taller tried to read his very thoughts. "Can you stand up?" Aikawa nodded slowly, yet his face twisted a little in pain when he did. The ace waved Matsukawa over again. "Here, help me stabilize him and get him off the court." Aikawa chuckled. "And here I thought you were so strong, Iwa-chan. Put those beefy arms to use. I bet you could carry me bridal style." He teased, leaning onto the smaller with almost his entire weight. "And here I thought you knew how to receive. Looks like we both were wrong." "Mean, Iwa-chan." They sat down by the wall, and Iwa made sure Aikawa leaned against it, secure from falling should he faint again. "Do you need anything else?" "Yeah, maybe some water. Here." Yahaba jumped to their side, a bottle in hand, and gave it to the ace swiftly. "Thanks." When he turned around to urge the captain to drink, his face was scrunched up in pain again, and he half-heartedly covered his ears. "Maybe it's best if we go outside. I think it's a bit too loud in here. You go and continue practice without us. I'll stay with him." They nodded and helped Aikawa to his feet again. When Matsun and Maki turned around again and headed for the court, Yahaba hesitated. "Iwazumi-senpai? Kiyotani didn't mean it. He feels sorry for what happened." His gaze wandered over to the aggressive spiker briefly. He refused to acknowledge their existence, yet his hands were clenched into fists. "It wasn't his fault, just like you said. Make sure he doesn't beat himself up over this, yeah?" Yahaba nodded and quickly followed the others. They sat on a bench near the gym, leaning against the wall behind it. Slowly, Aikawa got better if the smirk spreading on his face was an indicator of anything. "Were you worried about me, Iwa-chan?" The ace rolled his eyes. "Of course I was. You usually don't suck that much when playing volleyball, out of all things." "Man, I'm injured." Iwazumi sighed and looked at him exasperated, but with a hint of worry still reflected in his eyes. "But seriously, Kawa, what was wrong with you today? You never get distracted like that while playing." The setter sighed but smiled. "Our team is pretty great, don't you think, Iwa-chan?" "What?" "I'm just saying. I think when we leave, they'll be fine without us. We did a pretty awesome job." He smiled brightly. It was genuine, bittersweet, accompanied by the tears in his eyes. "Yeah, we did." "Do you think our ways will separate after graduation?" The ace looked at him and gulped before nodding slowly. "I think our goals in life are just a little different, but maybe that's enough already." Haikyuu looked at him like he was deep in thought, contemplating his options. Well, last chance then. Last chance for what? His thoughts stopped. Suddenly, he was engulfed by warmth. A warm hand cupped his cheek, while another grabbed his shirt and pulled him closer. What caused his brain to malfunction was a pair of lips pressed tightly onto his own. They were soft, warm, and tasted almost sweet as he instinctively traced the tip of his tongue over them, mapping out their shape. The setter took it as an invitation to deepen the kiss, and in his current state, Iwaizumi had no objections. The opposite, actually, as he sat up to gain momentum and took control. It felt incredible to be this close to the other. For a second, he forgot about everything around him. He didn't hesitate to ask himself what this meant for the past as well as moving on forward. He didn't hesitate to assess the consequences of his actions. He just wanted this. Something, until now, he never dared to consider too closely, that turned out to feel so much better than he could ever have imagined. The blissful bubble burst when Aikawa separated them, a little out of breath but determined. And suddenly, reality crashed onto him. His cheeks felt unnaturally hot, and he tried to jump back but was held in place by Aikawa, who had caught his wrist between his fingers. If I had known that you'd react like this, I would have done it much sooner. He grinned, and although Iwaizumi would love to snap back at him, he couldn't. His brain tried in vain to assess what happened and whether it had been a mistake. I'm sorry. Aikawa raised an eyebrow and laughed. You're so silly, Iwa-chan. And just like that, his lips found Iwaizumi's again. Komori sent an attachment. That was cold. I wasn't the one who suggested the challenge. Well, they were worried. So, Yamagata. Nuh-uh, you're going next, Mia. Oh, and can I add some people? Huh? Well, I didn't say it wasn't fun. Sure, feel free. Hayate added Nishinoya and Shibayama. You are the reason we liberos get a bad rap. Hey, you did the challenge first. Hey, what's up? Challenge? Hi guys. Run as long as you still can. Too late. What's going on? Atsumo made us do a new challenge. Hey! Challenge? I'm listening. What kind of challenge? Fainting in front of your boyfriends. Jeez. Komori did it already. Hayate resent an attachment. Nice. So I take it as you're participating? Of course. Sure. Liev might have recently hid all my favorite hoodies as a prank. Nice. So who should go next? Nuh-uh. Tsumu, you won't escape this. Fine. Atsumu sighed and let his arm drop to his chest and his phone with it. He lay on the couch, his legs stretched out over Aaron's lap, who was reading an article about something. What? Atsumu couldn't remember. Everything alright? There was a slight chuckle in his voice. After living together for the last year and dating for far longer, Aaron knew Atsumu and his habits well, and knew to distinguish between serious issues and minor annoyances or irritation. He patted over Atsumu's thigh as he put down his tablet to turn his attention to the setter. Nah, it's fine. I just can't seem to be able to concentrate on anything today. That could be a symptom of something, right? Perhaps dehydration or just an off day. Anything that could lead to dizziness. He didn't want them to get a heart attack just to scare them a little. Aaron smiled sympathetically and reached out to brush a few of the blonde strands from Atsumu's face. He let his hand rest on the blonde's cheek, and his gaze softened as the other leaned into the touch. Atsumu let out a content breath of relief. Aaron's touch was warm. It always was. It carried a specific kind of comfort, the kind that made you feel at home and safe. Can I do anything to make it better? We could watch something simple that doesn't require a lot of concentration. His consideration made Atsumu's heart flutter, and for a moment he was tempted to give in, if only not to have to separate from the warmth Aaron provided. But he had suggested the challenge, and he was nothing if not a loyal person. He yawned and stretched. Perhaps later. Where's Jin? In the office. He's still working on some documentation for the farm, but he said he'd be done within the next hour. Good. That left Sakusa, who went upstairs 10 minutes ago carrying a basket of fresh laundry, including fresh sheets for their bed. He wouldn't be done with putting everything away and changing the sheets just yet. Slowly, a plan started formulating in Atsumu's mind. He doubted he would be able to pull this off in front of them, especially with Kita's sharp eye for detail, but if he'd make just enough noise in the hallway, they should be able to hear it. He sat up abruptly and pretended to waver a bit when he got to his feet, just to plant the idea in Aaron's head already. I'll ask him about dinner real quick. I'm getting hungry. I haven't eaten anything yet. That was actually true and earned him a frown from Aaron. He simply forgot sometimes, particularly on days like these that lacked structure. It also was a good explanation for what was about to come. That it could very much realistically lead to fainting was confirmed as Atsumu started climbing the stairs. He felt a little faint and wondered briefly if the nervousness over the challenge made him overthink things, but shook it off. Bad idea. For a brief moment the room spun before his eyes and he missed the next step. It led him to stumble backwards and he collided painfully with the wall as he searched for something to hold on to before he regained his footing. His ankle hurt a bit as he had twisted it unfortunately on his way down. His heart was racing in his chest when everything around him finally stopped moving and he could orient himself again, only to find that he was halfway sitting, half leaning against the wall at the bottom of the stairs. When he heard rustling from above, he decided to commit to the action and with another thought let himself fall to the ground. He hadn't planned on including the stairs, but he might as well go with it if his clumsiness commanded it. Atsumu? Kita called out from above. The office was the room closest to the stairs, though Atsumu marveled once more at his boyfriend's ability to distinguish them by their steps alone, and always knowing where everyone was in the small house. Logically, he didn't reply. He heard a chair being pushed back and forced himself to remain as still as possible when steps echoed from above. Kita didn't like the silence that followed Atsumu's pained groan. He frowned as he got no answer, and in the blink of an eye the documents on his computer were forgotten about. His attention was on the hallway and any noises deriving from it, but nothing. It remained quiet. He got up to check if everything was alright. As soon as he stepped out of the room to investigate, the noise of a door clicking open echoed behind him. Is everything alright? Sakusa still had the sheets in hand and looked at him in concern. I'll check. He was just about to descend the stairs to search for the other two when Atsumu came into view. His breath caught in his throat. He forced down the panic that arose upon seeing his partner injured and hurried to get to his side. Atsumu? Atsumu, can you hear me? He didn't touch him as he waited for a response. Nothing. He quickly scanned the surroundings for any spilled liquid or object that could have caused a fall. Anything that could explain the situation or pose a danger that needs to be addressed. All he found was Sakusa, who had followed him after he heard him call out to Atsumu again. He stood frozen at the top of the stairs as he took in the scene. Be careful! We don't know if he slipped on something. He took a deep, calming breath as he tried to sort out the next step they had to follow in his mind. If you can, please give me my phone. It is still in the office. He wasn't sure if Sakusa heard or followed his instructions, but his attention was already on Atsumu again. He saw no obvious injuries, no signs of blood that might have indicated a traumatic head injury. That was good. Careful not to move him, he leaned forward to listen to his breathing, tilting his head sideways to simultaneously observe the lifting and falling of his chest. It was still there. No need for CPR. The relief over that did not even reach him as he automatically moved on to the next step on his list, only interrupted by Aaron, who had run from the living room into the hallway as he noticed that something more serious must have occurred. What happened? I'm not sure. He seems to have fallen down the stairs, but I can't find anything that could have caused this. His breathing is fairly normal, if a bit accelerated, and I can find no obvious injuries. However, we have to assume he hit his head considering that he is unconscious. Sakusa behind him winced as he handed him his phone. Not necessarily. He seemed off before. Maybe he just got dizzy and fainted before he even hit the floor. Both can be possible at the same time. We cannot move him unless it's absolutely necessary. I'll call an ambulance. Tsumu. Sakusa had reached out to hold on to Kita's shoulder for support. He had seen many injuries throughout his job as a professional volleyball player. Bruises, scratches, broken fingers, and twisted ankles, as well as nosebleeds, but severe head injuries or collapse were much more rare, and he panicked at the implications this might have. Before Kita, however, could call for help, Atsumu stirred. He let out a pained groan and moved to fight himself up from the ground. Hey, Tsumu? Aaron came to his aid immediately, supporting him, while Kita tried in vain to intervene. Stop! Atsumu, stop! Fear laced his voice, and his previous calm and collected demeanor vanished. You can't move yet. You might have hurt... Shinsuke? It's alright. I only fell like 3 steps. He rubbed his eyes tiredly, sat up completely and leaned against Aaron. How are you feeling? Does anything hurt or do you feel nauseous? Atsumu shook his head and reached out to take Kita's hand to stop him from calling the ambulance. I'm fine, just a bit dizzy. Atsumu, I would much prefer if we get this checked out. You were unconscious for at least 3 minutes. A small, sheepish smile tugged at Atsumu's lips and he avoided eye contact. About that... Promise to hear me out. What did you do? Sakusan knew that face. He knew it too well. Next to him, Kita seemed to grow suspicious too, because he lowered his phone and observed Atsumu closely. Well, there was this challenge to feint and see how our partners reacted, but... He sped up, trying to get his explanation out as fast as possible as their expressions darkened. I didn't plan for the whole stare thing to happen. I really did get dizzy and stumbled. I might have forgotten to eat anything today, and, well, then I got up a little too quickly, then I fell down the stairs. And I thought I might as well use that, only when I lay down on the floor, I suddenly felt really tired and sluggish, and I didn't even realize it's been more than a minute. Sakusa took a deep breath to calm himself before getting up abruptly and cursing under his breath. Ami? Kita looked like he was still processing that, but when Atsumu got up to follow Sakusa and flinched, he was by his side again to stabilize him. You said you fell. Did you get hurt otherwise in the process? Only a little. Before he could acquire more information, Sakusa returned, his phone in hand. You are an idiot, Miya Atsumu. How many times have I told you to eat regularly? It's not my fault. I just forget. Well, you're gonna eat now. I'll call Osamu to order something from his restaurant. Don't look at me like that. I'll also tell him that you didn't eat so far. At that, Atsumu paled. His boyfriends weren't the only ones angry with him when he failed to look after himself properly, and Osamu was his own kind of scary, particularly when it's about Atsumu and food. He looked at Kita and Aaron in horror as Sakusa left again to make the call. You're just gonna let him feed me to the sharks? Well, to be honest, you kinda deserve it. Atsumu made a wounded sound of protest that was barely convincing and finally coaxed Kita to relax a little. Aaron, could you carry Atsumu back to the couch? I want to take a look at his other injuries, and he shouldn't get up again until he has eaten something. Hey, my blood sugar might be a bit low, but I haven't suddenly lost the ability to walk. Kita ignored him, and so did Aaron, though Atsumu's further complaints died on his tongue as he was swept up in the strong arms of the taller and pressed his chest. Who would complain in his position? In the living room, Kita inspected the freshly blossoming bruises and his ankle. Nothing major, and a good night's sleep should heal whatever blemishes he had acquired, but only after Atsumu assured him for the 18th time that he didn't hit his head did Kita let it go. The silverhead sighed and rested his head on Atsumu's knees from where he had knelt down before him. I'm sorry that I made you worry. Apology accepted. I'm glad it wasn't bad. Though, Atsumu? Please try to remember to eat, or let me, or Aaron, or Kyo help with that. This could have ended badly. Aaron hummed in agreement as he placed a glass of water on the coffee table before sitting down beside them again. I'll try. I promise. Thank you. You know that you can rely on us if you need help with anything. I know, I guess I never saw it as a problem. I only ever forget when I'm too distracted and don't have a clear schedule that day. Kita looked deep in thought at that, but when Aaron started to softly play with his hair, he sighed and allowed himself to ease into the touch. Atsumu stared at his phone. A new group chat opened that displayed an all too interesting message from Aikawa. A challenge. A sly smirk spread on his face as he saw it and the various responses from the other setters. One per team had been chosen. This promised to be interesting. The banter began gradually as Aikawa claimed it would be a good opportunity to see whether their crushes liked them, to which the replies came in various degree of denial. They argued as the third year tried to convince them to participate, but Atsumu didn't have to be convinced. Asumu and he pulled pranks on each other constantly, and it wasn't like he had a crush. Well, maybe a very tiny one since that training camp. But said crush was in Tokyo, so it was just pranking his beloved teammates. Hey, you prick, are you coming or what? The practice match is about to start. Of course. Just yeah, wait, my set's gonna be perfect today. He scoffed at the other and was quick to put his bag aside and follow his twin. Their banter continued throughout the hall until the icy gaze of Kita made them freeze on the spot and caused shudders to run up their spines. They'll be here in a minute. Warm up and stretch thoroughly. And not in union before they started running the laps. It quickly turned into a race. Do you always have to make everything a competition? Save your energy for the game. Aaron facepalmed upon seeing the twins gasping for air at the side of the court, posing as involuntary models for Suna's newest collection. He's talking to ya, Sumu. You were slower than usual. I beat ya. His breathing was rigid. The heck ya did? Yeah, scrub. I give up. Drink some water. The coach is currently greeting Itachiyama, so the game will start soon. Wait! He sat up, tiredness forgotten. Say that again. What? Drink some water? Itachiyama will be here soon. We're playing against Itachi? Well, yeah. You're as stupid as your dance. Yeah, the dance won. Suna watched them, seemingly indifferent, but a mischievous glint reflected in his eyes. He leaned over to Akagi. Didn't even deny that he's stupid. The Libero laughed, and if it weren't for Atsumu's newfound distress, he'd for sure have been pulled into their messy argument again. The setter ground. He had wildly miscalculated. Of course, he could always just not do the challenge, but he already agreed, and it sounded like so much fun before. To be honest, it still did. He was just a lot more nervous about it now. What? Aren't you happy I gotta see your Ami Ami so soon again? Shut up. The silver-haired laughed, but when it died down, there was a serious spark in his eyes, and he frowned slightly. But, hey, Tsumu, are you okay? You all seem off today. Of course I'm okay. But if you're tired, don't worry, I'll win for the both of us. I'm the better twin after all. Asumu rolled his eyes and sat up to straighten his clothes and stretch. Fine, but then don't complain later when you're sore. I will make your food after this. No fear. Suddenly, the door to the gym opened widely with a cracking sound. Kita assembled them with his gaze alone as they were faced with the greenish yellow of Itachiyama. They bowed in mutual respect, and Atsumu's eyes quickly found the tall ace amongst their players. The Raven looked as uncomfortable as always when faced with a crowd, or people in general. His slumped posture made him appear smaller and more timid than he actually was. Atsumu knew firsthand how fierce Sakusa could be. He had a sharp tongue and the confidence to back it up. Half his face was still covered by the white medical mask, and he kept close to his cousin at all times. The bubbly, jolly libero was the complete opposite of him, like day and night. It was honestly hard to believe they were related at all. Ouch! A sharp pain spread from his ribs, where his beloved brother had nudged him gently with his elbow. Simu, what? You're staring. It's painfully obvious. Atsumu felt his cheeks heat up and quickly looked away, desperately wishing he could silence his twin. No, it's not. The silverhead just looked at him unimpressed while raising an eyebrow. Atsumu pouted in response. From the side he heard Ginjima chuckle and nudged him in response. The game went great so far, though they lost the first set to Itachiyama. It might have been at least partially due to Atsumu's lack of concentration. He used less and less creative and wild attacks than the others were used to. His sets were still good, but not like the Miya Atsumu. Normally, his crush on Sakusa never interfered with his skills and the game. If at all, it made him more competitive. Just with the challenge planned, he got nervous. It was the midst of the second set, and they were holding up fine, but halfway through, Itachiyama got the lead, and after losing 2 points in a row, that colt caught a break. Atsumu, are you feeling okay? He flinched. Yeah, of course. Kita looked at him with a piercing gaze as though he attempted to stare straight into his soul. There was no anger or frustration in his eyes, just calculation, as though he tried to see through his intentions and any potential lies, or perhaps intimidate him enough to tell him willingly. I'm fine, I swear. I can still play. Certainly hope you're not just saying that, otherwise I'd drag your sorry ass home myself. The blonde rolled his eyes. Back in the game, he was almost back to his usual self. Just when the suspicious looks stopped, his act started. A stumble here and there, reacting a little slower than usual, and labored breathing as he pretended to lose his stamina and fight for balance. Nothing too extreme just yet. He didn't want to be taken out of the game before going through with it. But he could feel their eyes on him. He wasn't sure whether it was his nervousness or the fast breathing, but the more time went on, the easier it was to act, and he could even see some dots dancing in his vision. This became almost too real for himself. While waiting for the next serve, he was met with Sakusa at the net, who frowned at him. He could see his lips moving, and for a brief second it sounded as though he was saying his name. Then he swayed backward. It was involuntary at first, but in the name of the challenge, he leaned into it. He fell, expecting to hit the hard gym floor at any moment, and for reflexes to kick in that would expose him if he wasn't careful. Neither happened. Strong arms reached for him, catching him, but it was too sudden to hold both of them up. The person was pulled down with him and somehow quickly positioned their body between his and the ground, catching him. For a moment, silence filled the gym. From the walls echoed the sound of the volleyball hitting the ground repeatedly. Then, hell broke loose. The voices of his teammates mixed as they screamed his name. He could hear their steps rushing toward them. At the same time, the person holding him tensed, their fingers closed around him more closely, to the point where it was almost painful. Tsumu! Atsumu! All Sakusa saw from the corner of his eye was a flash of blonde hair from the other side of the net. Atsumu fell, and he didn't even have the time to think about it as he reached out underneath the net and caught him. It happened automatically, adrenaline rushing through his veins. He had meant to stabilize him, but Atsumu didn't stop. His weight pulled him down further, and Sakusa was quick to follow. His eyes widened in panic as he saw that the setter fainted. He pulled him into his arms carefully, almost forgetting about the others around him in his panic. Their presence came back full force as they screamed the setter's name, running towards them. Kiyomi felt a distinct desire to flee, his heart racing in his chest, yet it was as if he was glued to the ground by the blonde. He couldn't leave his side. Atsumu's expression was relaxed, a stark contrast to the overall panic, and he looked so vulnerable that it made Sakusa's heart clench. Tsumu! His brother reached them first, extending a hand toward the twin and shaking him slightly. The voices and panic of the growing crowd around them started to suffocate Sakusa slowly. From the corner of his eyes, he could see his cousin looking at him questioningly and with worry reflected in his eyes. He wished he could answer him and sneak into the furthest corner away from the mess as usual, but this time he was caught right in the middle. Everyone, step back. Give them room to breathe. The captain of Inarizaki ended his torment without even so much as raising his voice. It echoed through the panic and everyone followed suit quickly. Sakusa-kun, can you please check Atsumu's breathing? He nodded slowly, the option that it might have stopped only now occurring to him, and a new kind of panic spread through his system as he stretched a shaking hand out to lay upon Atsumu's chest. He could see Osamu gritting his teeth, not far from them. He wanted desperately to get to his brother. Before Sakusa's nightmares could become reality, Atsumu stirred in his arms. He groaned and slowly opened his eyes. Atsumu. He almost didn't recognize his voice. It was shaking slightly and much more gentle than expected. The setter was equally as surprised as he was met with the dark, almost coal-black eyes looking down at him in concern. Ami, I'm sorry. You should be. What were you thinking pushing yourself like that? If you're not feeling well, get off the court. Atsumu flinched at his harsh tone, more so because he could hear the genuine worry sparking through and saw the way Osamu's hands clenched on nothing, digging his nails into his palm. He's right, Atsumu. Maybe go outside for a bit to get some fresh air and rest. Someone needs to go with you, though. I can do that. I need to go outside, anyway. He was shivering slightly, barely holding it together as Komori jumped to his rescue. Great idea. Atsumu will be cared for and the team should be balanced, if you still feel ready to take us on even without your twin combination. Komori teased and was quick to make light of the situation and cheer them up. It worked, and with the competitive spirits reignited, the gloomy atmosphere seemed to fade slowly. Yet, Osamu's and Sina's eyes followed them till the door shut close behind them, and Sakusa had no doubt they'd check up on Atsumu soon. Atsumo's heart was racing and he tried in vain to fight off the blood rushing to his cheeks while the ace led them to a bench at the side of the gym. He might faint for real if this went on. Atsumo. Huh? He gulped as he noticed Sakusa's gaze on him. Sit down first. I don't want you to faint again. Right. He did, trying to sort his thoughts and catch his breath in vain. Sakusa Kiyomi. The Sakusa Kiyomi, best junior ace in Japan, famous germaphobe, and his crush of half a year had caught him, and was still sitting beside him, without looking disgusted as usual. Only now did Atsumo realize that his hands were shaking and he looked even paler than usual. Ami, are you alright? He threw a glare at him, yet it had no real heat behind it. I'm fine. He jumped up, looking at Sakusa concerned. He felt the urge to reach out to him but kept his distance, noticing how Sakusa's arms closed around himself as he tried to close himself off from his surroundings. How can I help? Another glare, this one more intense. By sitting back down and stop putting yourself in danger by acting reckless. Atsumo frowned, not satisfied with the answer, and crossed his arms but sat down regardless, until a smirk spread on his face. Are you worried about me, Ami? The look Sakusa gave him could kill, but Atsumo was still too excited about being caught by him to care. His brain was flooded with dopamine, and slowly but surely his nervousness subsided. He grinned confidently. You could have just admitted you like me, you know? Sakusa coughed, seemingly choking on air. What the heck are you talking about, Mia? No. Ami, I was at Atsumo already. Lost that privilege. Not fair. Stop acting like a child and be grateful he puts up with you at all, will ya? Samu! He glared at his twin in betrayal. Don't look at me like that. You have no idea how much I want to punch you right now for being such an idiot. Before Atsumo could protest, and instead of punching him, Asumo's arms wrapped around him. Be more careful, yeah? Yeah. He grumbled the words against his twin's shoulder. Behind them appeared Suna, his phone already in hand. You know, it's really cute how much you care for your brother, but Kita told me to get you back inside. The third set is about to start. Coming. He stepped back. Yeah, stay here. We'll win this, even without you. Sure, but only because Ami's here as well. You'd need me if we'd play against the whole team. As if. And even then, that's no reason to overwork yourself. So, stay. I'm not a dog. Suna ignored their banter and handed a small bottle to Sakusa. Hand sanitizer. Here, Komori said to give you this. If they annoy you too much, just punch them. Everyone will understand. Suna looked at them unimpressed and walked back inside, followed by Asumu. Atsumu sighed and slumped back against the bench. That went... well? It was hard to say. But Sakusa caught him. Sakusa held him in his arms. He was worried about him. Heat assembled on his cheeks again, and he could feel his lips tugging upward into a smile. Maybe his chances weren't as bad after all. Thank you so much for watching this long compilation till the end. Please tell me what you think of this kind of projects and if I should do it for 2025 when the time comes. And also, this time I included from all the videos throughout all the years, the ones that were watched most often in 2024. But you have to tell me if for 2025 I should just include videos that I also published in 2025. This is all very new. So yeah, let me tell you, this was very nostalgic, like seeing all the old, like the old quality, seeing the WIT interface. Oh my god, it was definitely a trip down memory lane. And on that note also, thanks, like such a huge thanks for like almost getting the fainting in front of the Team Inarizaki edition to 1,000 views. 100,000 views. Oh my god, that is so insane. 100,000 views. I cannot quite process this, and if we ever reach it, I will probably just implode. Thank you all so much. Thank you for watching. Here's more content. Let's make it a good 2025 with good content.
Today's gonna be a good day.